I need a doctor's note to work from home for more than 2 days while I have an unidentified, presumably contagious illness? Well, if you insist. It's a tale as old as capitalism. My job, which, to be fair, I frickin' adore working at and am so grateful for and happy at, requires a doctor's note because I've been sick and working from home for 2 days.
Sir, this employee is getting all their work done on time.
Sounds like they've suddenly got a healthier work-life balance. Better threaten to fire them.
Now, I haven't just had a minor cold or flu. Several days ago, I came down with the worst cold and flu symptoms you can imagine, and then things started going downhill from there. It got to the point where I have now been to the ER 2 days in a row because of tonsillitis and excruciating pain brought on by swallowing tiny sips of water. It's not great. And despite a whole battery of swabs and tests, the doctors don't know what the underlying bacteria or virus causing these symptoms is.
Yeah, we don't know what's wrong with you, man. Here, take a whole book of prescriptions. Hopefully one of these drugs will work.
Obviously, there is no way in hell I want to infect my coworkers with this plague, so I told HR that I would be working from home until I'm feeling better, since my job can be done 100% remotely. They hit me back with the ever-famous,
"If you need to work from home for more than 2 days in a week, you'll need a doctor's note since it's against policy."
Is the laughter necessary?
Yes.
My first instinct was to just go into work looking, sounding, and feeling like death warmed up. But A, I don't want to infect my colleagues, and B, I legitimately believe that I would pass out on my walk to work and would have to be taken to the hospital yet again. Instead, I spoke to the ER doctor from earlier this evening, my second visit in as many days. I asked him how long he thought I should stay away from work or work from home, and then told him I needed a note so I could stay home. He had a brief flash of vaguely furious "What the frick?" across his face at the idea that my job would force someone as sick as I am to come in and risk the health of those around me, then assured me he would write the note. I was thinking it would just be a basic, "Lulu Ginger Spice, the OP, should continue to work from home until the end of the week." Nah, bro came through for me. He wrote a note saying that I should be off work for at minimum another week, then added the piece de resistance as his last line. Infectious disease requires more time than 2 days to improve. Way to slap HR in the face in the form of words.
"If you can't request off, you can't call in."
Malice interrupted. I was in the middle of writing down a request, in writing, for a day off about 3 weeks from now. I'm the main order taker at Mendy's, listener extraordinaire, if you will. I was smiling and excited as I wrote, proud papa beaming because my son moved up the football ranks to varsity, and varsity plays Fridays. I understood how much this sucked because I usually have Wednesday off for the Miss and Thursdays off for my boys' high school football games. Varsity plays Fridays. I knew I was gonna miss a lot of his games, but I figured I'd request off the last home half if the year.
What?
As it's our district rival. Oh wait, last home game of the year. Damn, that is a confusing typo. Before I could get a complete date scribbled, my manager, Alberto, says,
"Hey, you can't request off."
I looked at his face, trying to see if he was joking. He wasn't. I said, "Really? It's 1 day." He then said, as I tried to change my wording from request to inform, like, "I won't be in this day," he said,
"You can't call off either. Seriously, if you call me that day, you're no longer here."
Enter next malicious compliance. Day of the rivalry game fast approaches. Travis Etienne style. I totally unexpected but expected all at once. I text in. I message Alberto. "Hey, you said I couldn't call you today, so I'm texting. I won't be in tonight." I also emailed you along with the division manager CC'd in to remind you that Mendy's has a policy that allows for requesting off many days in advance. My request was instantly denied 3 weeks before the game. Now, I'm just reminding you that I won't be there if you're expecting me. I walked back in my next scheduled day and Alberto apologized profusely, saying,
"Why didn't you tell me?"
Like I need a reason. Oh, you just know that division manager was not happy to be CC'd into this workplace drama. Would probably explain Alberto just backstepping desperately. But no, he's right. How could he have known? His phone has been off and out of battery for the last 3 weeks. This is all on you, OP. You should have been more vigilant in making him aware. Do better, OP.
God!
Want me to stop postponing meetings? Okay, so I work in a tech company. Usually we have a software deployment every other Thursday. The team usually has a long meeting on Friday, 2 to 3 hours after deployment. However, usually we have some minor issues after deployment and I have to do a lot of monitoring and fixing. So I usually ask the team to push the meeting to Monday so we can stabilize the system first. If you are outside the tech industry and this made absolutely no sense to you, thank God I'm not the only one. The hell are you deploying and stabilizing? What, are you dealing with coma patients? What's this? A few weeks ago in the meeting, they pointed out how I'm always postponing the meeting, and we never have it in its set date, which is Friday. I mentioned that usually the system isn't stable on Friday and I have to fix it, but they all agreed that we must stick to the schedule. I was like, okay. After 2 weeks, I attended the meeting on its scheduled time on Friday. It went on for like 3 hours. When we came out, there were hundreds of emails and tickets from the client. The servers were down for hours right at peak usage time. Our clients were mad and had lost tens of thousands of dollars during that time. The thing is, it was already the end of my workday, so my boss had to pay me a hefty amount for working on weekends and twice the days in leave as a replacement. Okay, this might be a bit evil of me, but I kinda wanna consider their side of things here. Did the OP ever at all actually tell them why he was always them were always postponing these meetings? Because if they're not aware or informed as to why you're delaying these meetings, from the outside in, it just looks like you're playing catch up and are postponing the meetings because you were lazy during the start of the week. It's just, as someone who's definitely never worked in the tech industry, I clearly know better than you. Think we're equals. Okay then. This is a true story that involves 3 people. I'm a 27 male and am the CFO of a smallish company. Charlotte, 50-year-old female, is the administrative assistant, and Tom, 68 male, is the CEO. I served as the assistant CFO for a few years, where Charlotte and I both reported directly to the CFO. I was somehow the bottom of the totem pole between Charlotte, the CFO, and myself. Despite my title and pay, I received the work no one wanted to do. I went with it because I knew one day I'd be her boss. That day eventually came a few months back, and things have only gotten worse. Charlotte has always considered herself a financial expert, despite not knowing the bare minimum of accounting. See, when time came for us to create our official organizational structure chart showing who reports to who, Tom asked Charlotte with it, as things here are very straightforward. Now, when I get the final chart, I'm outraged as I see that below Tom, instead of it being just myself, I see she has included her name as well. This was already approved by Tom and officially published. The audacity this woman had to think an administrative assistant is the same ranking of the CFO was baffling, but she also brown noses Tom, so I'm not surprised his decrepit self approved it. Okay, hold up. Is anyone picking up on a slight energy of a very insecure person about their title? Because it sounds like you kind of joined this company well after she's been in this company for a very long time. Sure, she may not be the same position as you, but she clearly has far more experience in this workplace than you. I don't want to brush your workplace hierarchy with a sexism card, but you know, it's sounding like it. Now comes the good part. I mentioned this chart to several groups we work with, and they couldn't believe it. They are all aware of her incompetence and all want her gone as she affects their business. I decide that if I'm not her supervisor, then I don't need to check any of the work she does. I let this go for a few months, and as much as it kills me, I leave all of her mistakes. Finally, the auditors come. Okay, scratch that. Turns out the real sumptuous a-hole was me all along. She actually is just incompetent and arrogant about her position. They find numerous mistakes, causing all of our public financial data to be incorrect. At first, they came to me wondering how it could be so inaccurate. I then gave them the system data showing that it was Charlotte who made all of the mistakes. They continued to push though, as in previous years, the responsibility fell on the CFO. I then reminded them of our organizational structure chart showing that I was no longer in charge of what the administration assistant did. They were upset, but one of the younger guys loved what I did. The auditors then strongly suggested that we fire Charlotte, or they'd have to issue their report citing things were severely misstated. She was finally fired last week, and Tom was issued a significant fine for being the supervisor responsible. So I hope they all learned their lesson, and I can hire a competent assistant now. Yeah, what do you think? Something about this just feels a bit like this person was a smug a-hole themselves. I don't know why, but just that last little bit of them mentioning that the young guy thought it was, they loved what I did. Like, it just reeks of Ken trying to get anyone's approval. See, this guy thought I was cool. You want to enforce a non-existent dress code? Game on. Years ago, I was working in a development lab for a large tech company. It was pretty casual, and there was no dress code until an old-school manager took exception to a couple of us showing up in tie-dye apparel. Oh no, hippies. A coworker was sent home to change clothes, and I got lectured about professionalism and appearance, and
It would be nice to see you show up in a real shirt sometimes, with buttons and a collar.
So I bought several of the ugliest, loudest, brightest tropical print shirts I could find. Yes, with buttons and collars, and those became my standard work attire forever after. Grumpy manager actually said,
Okay, I give up.
yeah, he gave up because you provided even better work uniform. That's why. He was impressed. He wasn't annoyed.
Pineapple shirt wearers for life. Unless you walk past people who are swingers, they're gonna get the wrong idea.
Written up for being chronically late. But wait!
Ooh, it rhymes.
This happened back in the 1980s before, computers are on every desk. Oh yes, I've heard about this. It's called the Jurassic Ages. My employer was a small company, only 10 or so employees. I was totally committed to the job and gave it my all, not leaving till all the day's work was done, sometimes staying hours after work to do so. I had been there more than 5 years at the time and was a key employee by then, the one people went to for help with the complicated tasks. I did a prodigious amount of work and always had stellar performance reviews, yada yada.
Don't criticize me for how I said that word, okay? I said it right. Prodigious.
Okay, turns out it's pronounced prodigious,
Which is what I said the first time, obviously. Gosh, no, I'm not gaslighting you.
Occasionally, traffic or whatever would make me a few minutes late for work. I didn't worry about it. We didn't use timesheets or a time clock, and everyone was salaried, erroneously, but that's a different story. The one of the owner's favorites was promoted to VP and put in charge of HR. Before this, we were equals in the company. One of the first things she did was give me a written reprimand for
Insubordination.
for being late one too many times. Eyes wide open now, I took the hit and began my campaign of malicious compliance. From that date forward, I entered the office 1 minute early, got to my desk, and was seen to be busy. Waited for 30 minutes to go pour myself some coffee. I stopped work and left the building every day at exactly the end of business hours, leaving unfinished work on my desk. I received joyous commendation from the VP for correcting my attitude, left there within a few weeks, and they had to hire 3 people to do my job.
I'm just imagining 3 people having to huddle around a single desk just to get a job done.
In an exciting way, they're practicing what it's like to live in an apartment in the future. Interviewer accuses me of parking in the handicap spot and tells me to prove it. Ah, the old Bible thumper logic.
I made a statement, but it's up to you to prove it wrong.
A few years ago, I was in school and job hunting. I got an interview at a company for office work. Filing, answering phones, setting appointments, etc. I was looking forward to getting an office job instead of retail or fast food.
Why the negative connotations? They're such a fulfilling workplace.
The building had big window walls that overlooked the parking lot, so you could see cars pulling in and parking. I pull into the lot and park my car. I get out and walk into the office. Now, as I'm walking in, I note that there is a car parked in the handicap space in front of the office. This car looks just like mine, I should note.
Well, that doesn't help their allegations then, as in, I'm kinda not that mad at them for assuming it was you.
So I walk in and I'm greeted by the manager, who kind of gives me a scowling look. It made me uneasy a little as we walked back to his office. We sit down and he is asking me questions in a bit of a clipped tone. He seems annoyed by my answers, and I don't understand what's going on at this point. He finally says,
Do you always park in handicapped spaces?
I'm confused, so I ask him what he means. He goes on a rant about how entitled I am for parking in the handicapped spot at a potential place of employment, and I'm just getting more lost. I asked him what is going on because I didn't park in the handicapped spot. I parked in the lot. He argues with me and says he watched my car pull in and saw me park there. I again told him that I didn't park in a handicapped spot, but the car that I walked by in that spot looked similar to my car. But he says that he knows that he saw me park and get out of the car. At this point, I'm over the whole interview. I knew this would be a cluster frick of a place to work for if this is the guy managing it. He goes a step further and says, prove it. I grab my purse and get my keys out. I don't even bother waiting for him and just leave the office. He's jogging after me and hurried outside to stand and wait. Well, his face went from smug arrogance to Pikachu real quick as I walked past the car in the handicap spot. He asked me where I was going as I walked over to my car. Then I turned around and made eye contact as I hit the button on my keys to unlock it and got in. He was starting to walk over to me, calling out that he was sorry about the misunderstanding, but I just put the car in reverse and left. I didn't even make eye contact with him as I drove away. Edit to add, this was my second interview, so the manager knows what my car looks like. I don't know why he said he saw me. I'm assuming it was a lie to get me to admit I did it. I've pondered this many nights, trust me. I always love these kind of stories because it teeters on that edge of being a bit too and they all clapped kind of scenarios, but you know, I can see this actually happening.
Well, how did he do it? It looks like you've summoned the John EmKay genie. I can grant you a wish, or you wished for shirts and hoodies. Wow, look at that, your dreams do come true. But only if you buy some from our merch store. Hi, I'm John EmKay, by the way. Used 100% cotton, terry cloth drapes. Wait, what's terry cloth lining? Good quality material and very beautiful designs. Use code SNACK for free shipping. Well, I gotta go. Someone else is watching this video. I gotta give them a little wish.
Was that the bite of 87?
He wanted me to clean up all the weights myself, so I did. Lifting at the gym, and my powerlifting butt has a ton of plates set up on the leg press. I get done, and another guy comes up to me.
Oh, hi there. How many sets you got left?
Actually, I just finished.
Oh, all right, cool. Thanks.
I start taking down the weights. Note there are 10 plates on each side. Hey, mind helping me take down the weights? Like, if we both do so, it'll be cleaned up quicker and you wouldn't have to wait so long to get started.
Nah, I'm good waiting. You put so many plates on, you should probably take them all off.
Well, let me get this straight. You want me to take all the plates off on my own?
Uh-huh. Your mess. You pick it up.
Fine then. I get down to about 3 plates aside while he's scrolling on his phone and continue to take plates down.
Oh, wait. I need 3 aside. You can stop now.
Oh, no. You told me you wanted me to take all the weights down myself, so that's what I'm gonna do.
No, seriously. It's fine. You can stop now. It's all good.
Nope, if I have to personally take off all my weights, then you have to personally load all of yours. He had to take a moment to collect himself and remain calm. I assume because he realized he did not want to try to fight a guy that just repped triple the weight he was gonna do, so he shut up, and I emptied the entire leg press, got my stuff, and walked away. Peeking over my shoulder, I saw him start to put plates back on the machine. Yeah, get f***ed, Mickey. Cheaper to pay with cash? Fine, have it your way. I usually pay things using my credit card. I find that it's way more convenient than carrying cash. Well, this one restaurant that I go to has recently started a policy that I don't like. I'm constantly reminded of this policy by one snooty cashier. Every time she rings you up, she says the total, and then she makes a big production of seeing the credit card, hits another button, and then says a higher total. She then smiles and says,
Just a reminder, it's cheaper to pay with cash.
Today, I put this policy to the test. When she did her little head bob of recognition at my credit card, I put it away and said, "Oh, actually, I'm paying cash today." I pulled nearly 60 quarters out of my pocket and set them on the counter. She looked like someone had just thrown up all over her. That fake cheeriness she typically has when touting the policy evaporated. I turned to the folks behind me, smiled sweetly, and said, "Sorry, it's cheaper to pay with cash." As the seconds turned into minutes, I just kept repeating,
Well, sorry, folks. They get charged a fee to use credit cards. It's cheaper with cash.
It's not about the money for me. It's about the principle of it.
Well, okay, calm down, Heath Ledger. It's just a lunch meal.
Cards are easier, cleaner, and more convenient, as the cashier found out in a very visceral way as she counted the quarters. Honestly, the whole thing reminded me of those old commercials that compelled me to get the credit card in the first place. Price of a meal with cash, $14.30. Price of a meal with card, $14.87. The look on that snooty Bich's face, priceless.
You want proof that my fiancé is sick?
You got it.
I'm a 25 female and engaged to my fiancé, Joey, 26 male.
He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications, and he has been sick and weak since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us, to the point where we've spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We are fine with it because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we're cool with it. We just want him to be healthy, but we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. So a friend of mine, Carla, 25 female, donated $10 about a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week, we posted an update, not asking for more money, but just to let people know that Joey has had another setback and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan for him. Carla commented publicly and said the following: "I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick this long or if y'all are just trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from surgery, especially when you're an athlete?"
Oh, the gall.
I said, "I am very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment, but how shamefully low of you." She replied, "I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he's sick, in a hospital bed, or sitting in a doctor's office. Anything?" I sent her $10 to get her off our backs, but I also sent her a video, with Joey's approval, the proof she asked for. One of the concerns Joey has had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing, and when he overexerts himself, which he does sometimes. I sent her a video of him dry heaving into an emesis bag in the middle of personal training. Now, one of his doctors asked us to record his PT so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully make some adjustments. So I didn't just take this video to send to Carla, but to me, it seemed like solid proof since she was asking for it. She said, "Oh, what the hell? I have emetophobia." I didn't know this, and this just triggered me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been traumatized. I said, "So now you have $10 more to process this trauma in therapy." Oh, damn! Side note, shout out to all the emetophobists in the comments.
We brought this up in the previous starter packs video, and my goodness, how many of you came out of the woodwork to give me your stories. That is, damn. Massive respect to all of you. You have my sympathies to deal with that ailment, but also my intrigue and curiosity too. Religious workplace wouldn't give me time off for my grandma's death. This was a few years ago, but I'm still salty about it. I was doing out of school care with kids. I also knew my grandma's health was going downhill. I informed my work in a near future I would need to take some time off and drive the 12 hours to my hometown to see my family. I got a call a few weeks later that the time was coming and I needed to go say my goodbyes. I told my work at first they were fine. Then, when I was in my hometown, my grandmother passed away. I was very close with her and I took it very hard. My work told me I get my 3 unpaid days off and I have to come back after that. Now, keep in mind, this is a child care company that values religion and family. I told them I was not mentally ready to come back. I didn't want to
deal with all the kids' questions, and even when you try to hide your sadness, they know. They are so smart. So I went to a walk-in clinic, explained my situation to my doctor, who was beyond mad that she even needed to write a note for me to take time off. I told her a week should be fine. She said, I'll write 2 weeks, just in case. I emailed a copy of the doctor's note to my work, and she took the full 2 weeks. They were so salty after I came back. Don't sit there and praise your amazing values when you don't have basic human decency. No, they were just mad that you exposed the fact that those values were just for show. Stop being nice and helpful. Do your job as directed. Work as an EHS person for a manufacturing and repair company. I deal with OSHA inspections, chemical management, and spill reporting. I do a lot of walk around and fix a lot of issues. Floor signs, door signs, block panels, trash, and other safety issues. I put in service requests for them to be fixed. Now, due to being sick, I got behind on my tasks. Not by much, but enough that I had to slow down to get them done. Work a little overtime. Had a doctor's note for breathing issues and that I won't be at 100% for a while. Well, had my review for my position. Being too nice, helping outside of my position, not finishing jobs as directed. Apparently, I needed to do my job as directed. Well, my raise and bonus was not given this year for that. Okay, so I requested a job description and tasks. When I had them in an email, I said I would only be doing them because of my contract, and that's it. Confirmation email 10 minutes later for it. So 3 months down the line, we have our big audit. My side of EHS of the department was given a 95 of 100. Very good score. I was docked 5 on the issue with chemical management. We had 3 drums that got misplaced for about a month. This is a huge facility, 4 different buildings at 400 to 500,000 square feet. So I took my issue and went about my day. They have some point system for the audit. So 1 week later, we had a meeting about the audit. Rest of EHS ended up with a 79 to 82 for the audit. They had 19 floor and wall signs that had been damaged, 10 blocked panels, 2 mislabeled waste bins, 3 waste bins without labels, and many more. For context, in my company, you have 2 main groups, green badge full-time and yellow badge contractors. I am contracted and have been the past 6 years. The ones in charge of the inspections that had issues are full employees. They noticed I stopped putting in the maintenance requests to have stuff fixed. I ended up telling them that I had my review and was told being too nice, helpful, and to do my job as directed. I gave the head of the department, his company manager, and the other rep that had come in the emails. My direct boss tried to say he did not mean that, but the emails showed what I was to do. I was taken aside with my direct boss and the main EHS department bosses and my contracted company rep. Talked to about expanding my scope of work to back to reporting and maintenance requests. I said, if my bonus and raise from last year are given and an adequate raise for my new responsibilities are given, then I would consider it. Well, they complied with my request and gave me more of my bonus because of getting the highest score on the audit. The EHS team I work for at my facility is 9 people. We had 5 new by the end of the month. I guess malicious compliance worked in my favor. My old roommates want me to deep clean to their high example. Background here is me and my 2 roommates are all moving out. I'm moving a few blocks down by the end of the month. They moved out of state from Alaska, so anything they wanted needed to be in a suitcase for the plane or in the containers U-Haul we ship out. They took 2 weeks off work to deal with the move, and I'm still working. The husband and I made an agreement that they would clean their areas and I would clean mine, which is 1 bedroom, the extra room for their storage, their bathroom, and the living room, which was all their stuff. And then the kitchen, since I thought they took all the cookware. Since the only things outside my bathroom and room was a single storage box of shelf-stable food and some food in the kitchen, that is all I was supposed to clean. But it was to be at the level they did the rest. I'm posting here, so obviously they did a terrible job. There is a pile of trash in every room they cleaned. The fridge has their moldy food. All the trash cans are full. Food wrappers and half-empty bottles of water and juice on every surface. Stray cat litter and food in every room of theirs. Their room and bathroom, which I was never supposed to enter, had stuff all over. The only good thing is they left the freezer and some of the pantry full, but mostly with stuff that's long expired. I'm not petty enough to leave this disaster to the landlord because it's not his fault. But But the carpet cleaning, deep cleaning of the bathroom, beyond normal cleaning, sweeping up the cat areas, etc., why the hell would I bother? Added benefit, the security deposit is entirely in their name. And because I paid my portion of the rent to them and not the landlord, I can't even be charged for the cleaning. So TLDR, the roommates expected me to deep clean the apartment they already left from to their example. Then they leave a mess. So I'll skip the deep clean since I can't get the security deposit anyway. Takes me back to the days when I was living with housemates. And look, I was kind of an a-hole in the way I resolved this. So I lived with 2 other housemates, both met through a housemate hunting website. One was on the lease but technically not part of the bond, but foolishly we trusted her to be someone who would actually do their part. Anyway, we're deciding to go our separate ways for various reasons. She dumped all her stuff illegally on the side of the road, and he doesn't properly clean the oven and kitchen areas like he promised he would. So obviously we lose some bond money going towards removalists for the junk left outside and the kitchen not being fully clean. But housemate number 3, oh, he's not happy with that. He refuses to give the real estate his bank details. Not until they definitely give him his entire bond back. And because of the way bond money is handed back here in Australia, I can't get my part of the bond money back either until he's handed in his bank details. So here's what I do. Upon learning about this situation from the property manager, I get in contact with my now ex-housemate. After failing to make him understand what the bond is for and this is what happens when you don't properly clean after your tenancy, not to mention acknowledging the consequences of us not bothering to get her to be put on the bond as well, I tell him that, hey, you hand in your bank details, we'll get the remaining bond money back, and I'll send you some of mine, the difference to what you lost from the bond clean. Please understand, this was after like an hour and a half of a phone call. Anyway, he hands in his bank details, we both get our parts of the money back, he texts me, hey, has the money arrived for you yet? And I blocked him. Now, wait, before you think, hey, that's a real dick move there, mate. He was a condescending a-hole towards the female housemate. I won't bother with the details, though. We're going to be here for another solid 10 minutes. Point is, I needed my bond money. And you bet, 4.5 years later, I still feel anxious driving through that suburb, even though I've moved to an entirely new state. He's just out there, somewhere, waiting in the bushes, just waiting to ask me where the rest of his bond money is that technically isn't his, it's actually mine. He's just upset that he didn't get his full amount back because he didn't learn how to properly clean.
More of a petty compliance, really. When I was in 8th grade, there was a policy that limited the number of absences you could have to like 8 or 10 a year. We were having family issues and planning to move in a month, and I was just a depressed tween bored with the warehouse that was most of 8th grade. The compliance comes in with this. You are not considered absent if you left after attending more than 50% of the day. So cue me in the office every day for the entire month of October, halfway through lunch, claiming to be sick and having my mom pick me up. When we finally moved to the end of October, I had attended only 3 days of classes after lunch. But I mean, you weren't absent, so it counted. You followed the rules. I like this. The perfect marks on your grade. They had to have changed it after that. There's no way you got away with doing that for that whole school year and then that wasn't changed the following year. You set a new precedent for sure. Remove the price tickets I made? Sure, you got it, boss. I work as a sales advisor in a showroom. The company recently went through some changes, specifically with the way price tickets are created. All tickets are to have QR codes linking to the item online. Stupid, I know. But what makes things worse is that they've updated the printing system. So now, if a product is not on the website or just hasn't had its QR code linked, it'll output a script error, making it impossible to print that ticket. As a result, yours truly has been making tickets from scratch for newer products or products that are just not on the site yet for the past year. This was supposed to be just while the other departments got the proper ones made. And it never happened. They just got complacent, huh? Fast forward to last week, and I get an email from upper management asking for a list of all the tickets needed for the showroom. A little over 100 tickets at this point. I do so, as I thought this was just them wanting to make a push to have the rest complete. Half an hour later, I get a follow-up email saying, we need to deal with the issue at the source, questioning why I didn't inform anyone about the tickets needed. I did. In fact, I'm still waiting for some that I asked for back in January. Nice. That's when you hit them with the as per my last email to really like hammer in that you're pissed. And questioning where I even got the template for the tickets from, since they would never give one out. After responding, I received another email stating that I should never have done that, as it looks unprofessional having some tickets with and without QR codes. The email ended by saying that I'm never to do this again, and that I'm to take the ones that I made down now and put the proper ones up. This was further reiterated in a meeting between my manager and upper management. He let me know afterwards. But would you look at that? The proper price tickets still aren't made yet, and I'm on holiday for a few days. Oh well, better take them down anyway. Wouldn't want to get in trouble for having anything unprofessional up after all. You mean unprofessional like not having a price ticket up there? Oh, wouldn't want that. I mean, the OP improvised and made a solid solution that was working as a placeholder, and then they were like, no, it's wrong! I mean, then update your systems, because it's not working otherwise. But hey, you know, that's your choice. I'm just here to follow orders, I guess. Shipping price is too high? No problem. A few friends of mine have businesses where they sell on this place. Let's call it the River. Rules of the River are controlled by a bunch of poorly programmed bots, and the support staff is trained that the bots are always right. What is this, drop shipping? My friend charged $3.75 for shipping for items under 8 ounces. When they started, it was a reasonable price for shipping that gave them a small profit. Fast forward 10 years and postage is now $3.90, plus the cost of labels and boxes, etc. Clearly, friend is taking a loss on shipping. The bots came along and decided that charging $3.75 for shipping is too much, and deactivate all the listings that charge this much for shipping. The River much prefers items to have free shipping. Explanations that he's actually losing money on shipping fall on deaf ears. Okay, malicious compliance time. He changed all of them to free shipping and raised the price of the items to $15. The bots on the River had no problem with this. Modern problem, meet modern solution. You don't want me to do overtime? Okay. My boss has a different priority on the work other than our main one. Say our job is to check and verify thing client data. His priority is to attend calls that does not concern it, i.e. calls about the football or photography club. Our main boss is asking a file to be updated by a certain day. That week, we're down 2 people on the work, so we're swamped with a lot of rush requests. This file is also used by another team, so updating it is a priority. The week goes by and it's still not updated, so the main boss asks me why it's not updated. I told him we're missing 2 people on the team, so I'm not able to reconcile it, and have to ask my immediate boss to do it. Well, what do you know? He didn't do it. We were given until Monday to update it. I asked for permission to do an overtime over the weekend, but was advised to just enjoy the weekend. So I did. Whatever you say, boss. Come Monday, everyone is going berserk because it turned out that that file contained some errors which resulted into it being escalated to the higher ups. Main boss asked me why didn't I update the file over the weekend. I said I asked for permission to do it Saturday, but was told to just enjoy the weekend, so I did not log in. We got into a meeting with main boss, and immediate boss was called out for not allowing me to render overtime. This caused a massive reporting issue and hits on the reporting side. Sorry, main boss. I was just following my immediate boss's instruction. You know, I don't get paid to make rules around here. I get paid to follow them. So if you want me to enjoy my weekend, I mean, you know, whatever you say, you sign the paychecks, man. Minor basic training, malicious compliance. Short and sweet. We had to climb up an obstacle course called the Warrior Tower. That sounds badass. Is it the Ninja Warrior Tower though, dude? The last step was to hook our self-made rope harness and B lay down the 30-foot side of the tower? Most people took 4 to 10 hops to jump down. I did it in 1. First big initial kickoff, 1 jump halfway down, then I hit the grass. Immediately a drill sergeant was in my face and yelling, "Private, why the hell did you jump down so fast?" To which I replied, "Drill sergeant, you told me to get off your tower, drill sergeant." He got this odd look on his face and said, "So I did. Now fall in." But when I ran off, I saw a smirk on his face. Oh, you got him good. You got him with something he couldn't really, reply back to. It was sound logic. He liked it. Just became his favorite. Late for work. I learned yesterday that I can only have 6 absences a year, no matter the reason, doctor note or not. But I can have 14 tardies in the same year. Not consciously, I'm running late this morning. I could have clocked in 1 to 2 minutes late, but I get the same occurrence whether I'm 2 minutes late or 2 hours late. So here I am in my car reading and playing games for a little bit before I clock in. What do policies encourage bad behavior? That's a good question, and I'm not sure. I think some companies would be like, that'll teach them. And then all it does is, loopholes are going to exist in every job. And as a boss, I feel like your job is to make the loopholes less appealing than the rules, right? I feel like that should be your goal. With my employer, the penalty for hourly employees missing work is an occurrence. Occurrences roll off after a year. year, and going beyond 7 at any one time becomes a problem. Missing a day gets you a single occurrence. As odd as this may sound, missing up to 3 consecutive days also results in a single occurrence. The result? Most people that need to miss a single day take the full 3 days off. The penalty is the same, so why not? Again, yeah, if I'm gonna get the same penalty, I'm just gonna take more time off. It seems sound to me. Like, that's the kind of penalty where it's like, I don't need this job. I'm just gonna take the full 3 days. Enjoy myself a little bit. Cold callers stalk employees on LinkedIn and proceed to ask the receptionist, me, stupid questions. As a receptionist, one of my tasks is to answer the phone. Who would have guessed? But here's the thing. I'm the only direct line to the company, meaning I'm the only phone number available to the outsiders. Employees have private phone numbers only available to customers. If someone tries to reach an employee but don't have their contact, they get me. When one call is for the employee, I'll put them on hold, Slack the employee and ask them what that's about, or if it's a longer request, I'll simply give an address email from which I can transfer said request. As for the calls I get, a lot are cold callers. I've been asked to filter as many as possible, so now I mostly ask them what they want, tell the employee, and put on hold as much as needed. To be honest, a lot of times I have no patience and will make something up to get rid of the cold caller as fast as I can. Employees don't like cold callers anyway, but this is about maliciously complying here. Now here's another thing. A lot of cold callers don't do their homework. They'll find an employee's name on LinkedIn, call me and say, hey, I'd like to talk to Patrick Patricka, name changed, head of marketing department, about the video equipments I sell. Do you know if he needs any? Sure thing, pal. Let me ask Patrick Patricka, name changed, who is not in the marketing department but in HR, if he needs video equipment. What? No, I don't need any of that. Thanks, he said. So I told the cold caller, well, no thank you. Patrick doesn't need any of that. All right, that's too bad, the caller said. Sometimes you also have cold callers that stalked employees that haven't updated their LinkedIn. This morning someone called me and asked for Mr. Johnny, name changed, said he really wanted to meet him. Sorry, Mr. Johnny isn't here today, I said with a sorry tone. Oh, that's too bad. Do you know where he'll be? No, sorry, I don't know. I really don't know, by the way. The guy left a year ago. Okay, no worries. I'll call again. Sure thing, pal. You do that. You'll be greeted by my dulcet tones yet again, don't you worry. You said the air freshener was free though? My neighborhood often gets door-to-door salesmen. Usually they read my no soliciting sign and leave, but sometimes they just can't help themselves and knock on my door. I answered one of these knocks, keeping the door concealed my house, and saw a kid barely out of high school standing there and holding a can of cheap air freshener. She smiled at me. Can I help you? I asked. We're just going around the neighborhood giving out free air fresheners. She cheerily handed me the can. I took it and looked at her, raising an eyebrow. And we have this spectacular new carpet cleaning liquid that we're also demoing. If you wanted, I could show you inside, she said, gesturing in the general direction of where she assumed my living room was. I smiled. Malicious compliance time. No thanks. Thanks for the air freshener though, I said as I backed up and started to close the door. Wait, she blurted out, reaching for the door. Can I get the air freshener back? No, I flatly said. Her face fell. I laughed. You told me you were giving them away. You didn't mention I had to listen to a spiel on carpet cleaner to get it. She leaned in. Well, my boss will get mad if I don't have it when I get back. Then why were you giving them away? I tilted my head and tried to look stupid. It wasn't hard. If you wanted me to buy carpet cleaner to then get the air freshener, you should have told me that and not handed it to me immediately. She kind of shook her head as if the marble that powered her brain had fallen loose into the pinball machine below, and she had to wait for it to come back into play, then wandered off in a daze. I shut the door. I just took a massive shit in my bathroom and needed that spray to cover it up. Thanks, carpet cleaner girl, for that free can of Febreze. Well, you know what? In a way, she got a satisfied customer. I think that's a win. Take him as you can get him, while I'm ringing it up as you ordered. I live in a town that's about 90% restaurants, yet the only place to eat is either Raising Cane's, let's get it box combo baby, Chick-fil-A, or here. Someone comes up with a coupon that refers to one particular item here. Okay, can I order the club sandwich, but can I substitute the meat for egg? I tell the customer that they could just order an egg and cheese since we serve all day breakfast here, and that's actually the same price. Maybe a little cheaper than using the coupon. Time comes to pay and I have to ring it in. So when a sub that was $8 is now over $10 because of the substitution change, meanwhile an egg and cheese would have only been about $7.99. TLDR, just because you think a coupon's a good deal does not mean you have to use it. Well, you know, you can't educate stupid and stubborn. Like that combination, you're not going to get anything out of. You did what you could. South African customs and excise? What's excise? Might mean exercise. I don't know if that is exactly what. We're just going to not worry about that word until it comes up again. I work in IT, and we were sending out empty boxes for people leaving the company to send their laptops back in. It was a good process, and we didn't have any issues until the first time I tried it in South Africa. They just couldn't accept the idea the box was empty and kept asking me for the contents over and over again. It came to a point where I had enough. You know that bit in The Martian where Mark Watney's been told not to swear on worldwide live TV? That was my reaction to being told it was simply not possible to ship an empty box. Amazon does it all the time. What do you mean? One quick Google later to double check I was right, I listed the contents as follows. 78% nitrogen, N2, 21% oxygen, O2, 0.93% argon, AR, trace amounts of other gases including methane, CH4, carbon dioxide, CO2, and neon, Ne, among others. I included the chemical compositions just to be extra petty, to be honest. I only received 2 more emails on the subject, one to say that my box had been released from customs and another confirming delivery. Oddly, I never had any issues after that. Well, yeah, you explained what was in the box, so now they knew. They got their question answered. It's okay. The day I became my classmate's advocate. Is this Paul Heyman? Why is it phrased like that? The school I went to had a student's code, which was the rules the students should follow and the consequences for failing to do so. Basically, a law book. So here in Brazil, it's not unusual for you to have the educational parts of school life separated. Like one place for high school, another for kindergarten, and so on. Yeah, just, okay. Usually there's just one place that has it all. That school that I went had a nasty high school coordinator. She overlooked all the teachers that dealt with the high school students, and she usually used the code for her advantage. I was about 15 years old at the time, and got so mad about it that I looked for my mom's copy of the code. All parents received one at enrollment, found it, and read it all. Every rule, every penalty, asked my mom for it, and she gave it to me. From that day, it never left my bag. So through the span of the year, a lot of classmates got late to school, more than 15 minutes. And the penalty for that was that if you got late to class 3 times, you would receive a written warning. 3 of those got you suspended from class for a day, and 3 suspensions got you kicked from the school. Because of that, at the first day of classes next year, the high school coordinator went around all the classrooms to announce that every time someone arrived late, they would receive a warning. So if you got there late 9 times, you were kicked out. I didn't say anything at that moment, but after some months, I got late to class for the 3rd time. She took me to her office and she told me that I wouldn't be attending class that day since it was my 3rd time late. I was being suspended for the day. Enter malicious compliance. I open my bag, pull out my copy of the code, and tell her that I wasn't suspended because that's not what's written in the code, and when I was enrolled at the school, my parents agreed to the code's rules, not hers. She got really mad, said my copy was outdated and that she was gonna check hers. I just waited, and not long after that she found her copy and brought it over, read it silently, and her anger melted away. She became a puppy and told me to go to class. Some hours after, she went around all the classrooms to announce that her changes to the rules were no longer in effect and that everyone had their suspensions revoked. Damn, you just told her, actually, officer, the law says this. You schooled her, dude. You schooled the schooler. This is just titled Steak. This is not my story, but my grandpa's co-workers. My grandpa is a retired cop. When he went to lunch break, B-R-A-K-E, okay, he went with his co-worker. Workers? Who's writing this? To a local restaurant? Bro, okay, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. We'll ignore it. It's cool. So one day they went to the restaurant. One of the coworkers jokes that the beef is too small, and one of the waiters heard him. So when the food came, everyone else got a normal steak, but the coworker that joked and complained got a giant steak that he almost couldn't eat. After that, he never complained. Sorry for my batting. Oh, so sorry. My bad. I was poking fun at it. I'm sorry. You did great. I apologize. The phrasing of the words was fine. It was just the spelling. You were... Wait, so if I crack a joke in earshot, they triple my beef count? Where is this place? I need to know, for science. I agree. Any place that's gonna triple my beef for a little complaint? Easy move. For a little jokey complaint, this counts, but probably not in the spirit of the thread. I started a job in finance for a company that fit well with my family setup at the time. My wife's status in an affiliated company played a huge role in my hiring, so I feel obligated to make it work no matter what. My boss was a serious bully. Oh, I hate it when that happened. That sucks, man. She only wanted to hear what she wanted to hear, and if she asked a question, she only wanted a yes answer, period. I know I haven't done a lot of like aside from the story commentary because I feel like these stories are perfect when you just have them on loop. But no, I hate that. There's nothing productive to be done when your boss isn't willing to have an open mind. We had a production goal set for us, but it was the kind of job that was more of a third party thing. We worked with real estate agents who then suggested us to their clients, so there was no actual direct marketing, just selling our services and products to the agents. There's very little you can do to directly affect your success other than showing up, always being available, and performing well when you get a shot. Well, she didn't care for the reality of that, so she would hammer us every monthly meeting with, "What are you doing to produce business?" She wanted to know exactly what we did every day and how we were increasing production. Again, this is not a direct sales situation, so there's a huge component of just being seen and thought of to refer. So I started to write down hour by hour what I was doing and sending it to her every Friday. It was pages of mundane crap like had 3-minute conversation with whoever, checked 14 emails for 23 minutes, etc. Well, initially it backfired a bit as she loved it. Oh my god. And made all the other employees do it too, and credited me for it, which obviously was bad. However, after a month or two of this, I actually got much busier as I guess it was focusing my attention on being intentional with my interactions. I started to be one of her favorites, slowly stopped being as detailed or submitting the activity reports at all, and ended up better at my job and off her list for good. Sometimes malicious compliance actually improves your own performance and productivity. Still hated her guts though, so there's that. Yeah, she didn't make it off your list, huh? Oh man, I wonder how the employees, like the fellow coworkers felt when they were like, "OP has a great idea. Start logging every move." Just heated missiles for eyes just on his back at all times. Don't go through that door? Okay. So this one's happened back when I was maybe 8, and while I wouldn't have thought of it as malicious compliance, my mom sure did. Mom was vacuuming and I'd done something to annoy her. Can't remember what now. Well, you were 8. So she marched me down to my bedroom, sent me inside, and told me that if I came out this door before she said I could, I'm already grinning. I feel like I know where this is going. Then I'd be in big trouble, and slammed the door. So of course I waited a few minutes, then decided I was bored and wanted to go outside. Per her instructions, I ignored the door, climbed up onto my chest of drawers, opened the window, took the fly screen off the window, climbed out onto the dog kennel and then onto the ground, and went to see what my dad was doing. Sometime later, after finishing cleaning and finding that I wasn't in my room anymore, Mom stormed outside, spotted me sitting on Dad's lap on the ride-on mower while he was mowing the lawns. Mom has of course come over to us, absolutely fuming, and demanded to know what the hell I was doing. She told me not to leave my room. I of course said, rationally and confidently, "Mother, you told me not to leave through the door. I obeyed your instructions by leaving through the window. I'm spending time with Papa." She stood there flabbergasted for a minute and then stormed off back inside. For ages, I thought that Mom, faced with the unassailable logic of my argument, had known she was in the wrong and given up. But no, turns out that my dad, sitting behind me and thus fully visible to Mom but not myself, was desperately trying to hold back utter howls of laughter. And Mom knew that there was no way she was winning and quit before he burst out laughing at us. Can you believe it took another 3 decades before I was assessed for autism? Actually, yes, I can. What and where in this would I pick up that was an autism move? This just seemed like, practical. This was a practical decision made with careful thought for the rules in place. I should help you, but not him. One time, many years ago, I worked in a fairly decent restaurant as a cook. One night, one of my coworkers was going to be clocking out soon and asked me to help with a few tasks so he would be ready to go. I had time, so I agreed and started working on some of these items. Enter Bossy Not Boss. He started complaining and told me that all those things was that guy's work and I shouldn't be helping. Okay, I was pretty new, so I stopped and let it go. Later that night, Bossy Not Boss was getting ready to clock off and asked me to help with some of his items. I pointed out that those were his items and he needed to take care of them. Man, oh man, he got pissed. He threatened to punch me, which would have been a huge mistake for multiple reasons. He stormed off and had to do all his tasks on his own while I piddled around in the kitchen. We got the old kitchen piddler, making bosses angry. If you think that, you can go home. This happened about 15 years ago, and after reading all the other compliance stories, I thought I would add mine. I was a tool and die maker by trade and was working an overtime shift at a tier 1 supplier automotive stamping plant on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. That is hyper descriptive. This guy remembers things. Usually if anything is going to go wrong, it'll happen in the first 30 minutes of a press startup since they have to align the coil and get the strip through the die. Once the presses get going, then you could start to look at what dies are scheduled to run next and check them accordingly. But if you start to work on a do and a press goes down, it'll most likely involve packing up whatever you've taken out already and rolling your toolbox to the press. This is why I was waiting 30 minutes before starting any shop work. My supervisor at the time, we'll call him Rude E, came into the tool room, saw me reading the paper, and came over and asked what I was doing. I explained to him what I stated above, to which he replied, "What's next? You want me to put a bed upstairs also?" I said if he did that, I would support him 100% and laughed. I guess he wasn't amused because he said, "If you think you're gonna come in on OT and stand around reading the paper for 30 minutes, you can go home." Rudy then stormed off out of the shop. Enter malicious compliance. After he left, I started locking up my boxes and putting my shoes on. My coworker on shift asked where I was going. I told him Rude E said I could go home. About 20 minutes later, Rude E comes back into the shop looking for me. He asked my coworker where I was. My coworker told him that you told him he could go home. He then told my coworker to come with him, and he was stuck at a press for 3 hours alone. If only he'd been patient and trusted my judgment, he would have had 2 guys on a press call and not 1. Oh, Rude E. Now he's lonely. Let someone else know? Sure. Recently, a coworker asked me to send her information about a customer's questions about her website dealing with tracking pixels. I sent her the information, but as is policy, I did not include the customer. The tech department is considered full of antisocial people, and well, I am one of those antisocial people. Wink. You put a little ding after that. Today, the same coworker replied to what I sent, asking me to contact the customer about it. So I forwarded the reply, which included my previous information as well as her request to contact the customer to the customer directly. As for Fallout, well, it literally just happened when I typed it in. A few minutes after I sent the email, the CEO said he would contact her and for me not to do it, which I had to tell him it was already too late. He said any more questions like that will have to go through him, so I no longer will have to talk to customers. Got what you wanted at the end of the day. I like when you use the system to your advantage. You got exactly what you wanted out of that. First incident of malicious compliance. Everyone remembers their first. Just relocated to a new city and was contacted by a supervisor advising me on how much and what I can spend. I'm usually frugal and try to save money as much as I can, but usually don't compromise on necessities. So in order to relocate, I was planning on using the train as it was more comfortable and easygoing as compared to flight. However, I was told that in economy, you usually have baggage limitations, and even if I paid overweight, I still wouldn't be allowed to carry the extra stuff I had with me. So I thought of upgrading to business class as it offered assistant with baggage as well as complimentary meals. But before I could do that, the supervisor told me that that's not allowed. So fine, I won't upgrade. Instead, I booked an economy flight ticket last minute, paid extra baggage, and also hired moving and shipping company to ship my stuff. And cost for this is a whopping 750 Canadian as compared to the business ticket, which would have just costed an additional 150. But hey, you want to be reasonable, so here goes. Whatever you say, boss. Parking at work is a nightmare. Tell me about it. Now, before we read this story, that reminds me, when I first started learning how to drive, I didn't get my license till I was like 18 because I was really nervous around like driving a car. I don't really remember why, but I remember that being very integral to like a fear of mine. And so when I got a job, I was working, I would specifically park my car as far away as I could from anyone else's car because I was so terrified of parking next to someone. And the first day of work, training's over, I leave, someone had parked next to me and I was like, I took a deep breath. I was like, I can do this. I'm a big boy. I'm a grown man. And I scraped the sides of our cars together and I panicked. I left my information on his like hood and I never showed up to that job again. I was so frightened that I was like, just ruined my first vehicle and someone else's. Anyway, now I do voiceover and I don't have to go anywhere. So for a bit of backstory, I'm an overnight security guard. Where do you work? Is it a goddamn pizzeria? I work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. most nights. Oh, okay, never mind, we're good. I'm with a company that has contracts with other companies for security, usually hotels, apartment complexes, clubs, etc. For this one particular site I work at 90% of the time, the parking is terrible. It's a luxury hotel and the parking garage is nowhere near as accommodating as it should be. The hotel has a valet and a restaurant on the top floor. The parking garage is only 2 floors, maybe 100 spots for all employees and hotel/restaurant guests. They recently made it so that roughly a quarter of the garage is reserved for employees, which is is nowhere near enough. They also made it so you need a parking permit to park there. If you don't have a permit, you get towed. One warning allowed via a sticker on your car. The garage is also valet only for non-employees. Only other option is to pay to park in the street. Personally, I have 3 cars, not counting my SOs that I drive on occasion. The parking permits list your car's year, make, model, color, and license plate number. My boss told me that the permits are transferable between cars, but they'll come and ask you why your permit does not match the car. My boss told me to say, well, boss's name told me that the permits are transferable between cars, and this is the car I drove today. Also, I asked them for permits for all of my cars to save time, and they said every person only gets 1 permit. I was also told that they have to check every time the permit doesn't match, whether they know the car or not. Cue malicious compliance. The day I received my permit, I continued to drive a different car every day. One of my 3 cars, my SO's car, my mom's car, her boyfriend's car, every car I was able to drive. I drove to work. After a while, management was starting to get upset about it. I gave them the same answer every time. I told them, well, my boss said they're transferable and this is the car I drove here today. After about a month and a half of this, I came in one day to my office and there it was in all its glory. A stack of permits for every single car I ever drove to work. Each with their year, make, model, color, and tag number. Work, 0. The legend himself, Salmonator 0107, 1. And 1 he did. Student would run about saying, it's not fair. I teach private music lessons at a university. They're one-on-one type of classes. I was hired late into the semester and walked into a messy department. I have a student who I teach private lessons. Last semester, she complained about my scheduling approach and then would cancel herself because she needed to go to work instead. Because private music lessons are totally subjective, I modified the rubric in such a way that she could get an A-. She then texted me asking me why she didn't get an A because it was messing up her GPA. So now, we're in the current semester. She sends me a text one day when I'm already on the road telling me she wasn't coming to class that day. My boss tells me she told him point blank she wasn't coming to class and could have notified me before I started driving. Someone famous was on campus and she wanted to see them. So I told her it was an unexcused absence. When I told her the absence was unexcused now, she starts sending me messages she was sick. I then realized I'm driving an hour down there one day to do research for my degree at a different school, and then another day just to teach her. But my syllabus now says that lessons are by appointment and that they can change as needed. I changed the day I teach to the day I'm already down there for research. She complains about that too. It's not fair! Because she has so many classes that day. Apparently my time and $14 in tolls I pay to teach only her is completely fair. I'm sick of this at this point. I tried to accommodate her because I wanted to treat my students better than some of the jerks I had when I was in school treated me. I say I'm only coming to campus one day a week and it's Tuesday. I'm told by my boss that she's really stressed out because she has 3 other classes that day, but I honestly just don't care. And I updated my syllabus so all the shit she pulled last semester she can't do this semester and complain about her grade. She wanted structure and now she has it. Well, no. She wanted structure when she could set it because your time is her commodity, right? No, incorrect.
When management threw away the
Guardian of the machine.
Context: the machine was made for creating grooves and cuts in cardboard. A 20-foot by 20-foot machine made of iron, wrought iron, and cast iron. The only piece of computer on her was an aftermarket safety system with a lock and key. My workmates and I started to use chalk to mark out common settings and help us know if things were rubbing correctly or wrongly. So we were using our own money to buy chalk to use at work. And one of the guys would buy those massive kid sidewalk chalks as thick as a candy bar. Well, during downtime, or setups, or while waiting for the last piece to be set up by the last guy, we would take turns carving pieces of chalk into rough shapes like Buddha, Tiki, cats, and it would become the
Guardian of the machine.
Until we actually used it. Cue management seeing us have any sort of fun or engagement as humans. Blasphemy. Tosses it, demands we never have it in the building again. If it isn't provided by the company, then it isn't allowed. Vibration on the 20th of the 7th. Bolts get loose. Pieces rub. Friction. Heat. Cardboard dust. fire. And to this day, there is probably a piece of company-bought chalk that has been amateurly carved upon sitting on that machine. Never mess with the guardian of the machine. I don't know why, but this suddenly sounds like a poem. Okay, it will ship today. A friend of mine did this. When I was a tech at a calibration lab, we had a torque wrench arrive for calibration. Now, to do the job right, you must let the wrench sit in the lab until it has reached the same temperature as the lab and the calibration standards. Do you get that? I hope you do, because I don't. It was winter, and the wrench was cold. Unheated shipping truck, warehouses, etc. So this wrench was put on the shelf to acclimate, which would take 24 to 48 hours. Now that afternoon, one of the salespeople told the torque tech that this wrench must ship today, because it was a big customer and he wanted to make a good impression. The tech obviously said that it couldn't, because it had to acclimate before being calibrated. This salesperson was the sort of irresistible force who thought that no one could or would ever stand in his way. Note, he was also not supposed to be in the lab or in any way involved in production. He was also kind of an a-hole. Yeah, just to add a little bit of sprinkle on top there. Already not having any authority in the matter, but he's also a big butthead. So the tech giant explained that the wrench could not be calibrated until at least the next day. Otherwise, the calibration would not be a good one, and we don't do it like that. That's when the salesperson exploded and flew his big flag high. Repeated several times that it must ship today. After the 10-minute tirade had ended, the tech just told him it will ship today.
And my mummy told me complaining and sulking wouldn't get me anywhere in life.
So the salesperson huffed back to the sales department, gratified that he'd got his way again. As soon as he was gone, the tech processed the order as a return as is and put it on the shipping cart. The wrench did indeed ship that day, without a calibration certificate. The customer was miffed. The subsequent investigation did not show the salesperson in a good light. He was officially reprimanded. It's a very small thing, but it's making me smile.
I'm sorry, what? Hey viewer, I didn't realize we're gonna read a post from your girlfriend.
One of our trucks was financed through Ally. We've been paying extra every month since we bought it. Not much, but a little. Well, a month or so ago, the payment was delayed. Mailed it on time, but it didn't get there and get processed fast enough, so they started calling and harassing our office staff. This despite the fact that we were actually well ahead on what we owed. This month, they sent me a bill, like they do every month, but this month the amount due is $0.
Oh right, because you're so far ahead that even like the bill they're sending you is still totally paid already.
So I'm sending them a check for $0.00. And I'm sending it in plenty of time to get there by the due date. Oh, an update. I just got the check back, along with a letter from them, dated the day after the due date, thanking me for sending it. But no phone calls harassing my staff, so I'll count that as a win. That time I was a victim of malicious compliance, and it still makes me laugh. About 30 years ago, I was an admin and facilities manager of a Royal Mail sorting office, and one day, every one of the liquid soap dispensers in the toilet was empty. So I found a passing cleaner and told him, to which he said,
"Not my job. That's the night cleaner's job to fill them up."
Yeah, well, obviously he didn't do it. So you need to go to the cleaning cupboard, get some soap, and make sure there's some in each of the dispensers so people can wash their hands. Now, I go back upstairs to my ivory tower, and 5 minutes later, I get a phone call to say I need to sort out the liquid soap dispensers in the toilet. Go back downstairs, and in each liquid soap dispenser, there's a solid bar of soap. You know what? This is one of those circumstances where I'm actually not at all on the malicious compliance side. Soap is literally like a biohazard preventative measure. Hope he wasn't telling you to cut corners. They were telling you to make up for your coworker's terrible work ethic. Like, snap at your coworker, not at the person who wants to be able to wash their hands. Cue the school counselor. I'm a high school teacher and taught, among other subjects, politics at my previous school. We were briefed over and over again to be on the lookout for any sign that a student might be in psychological distress. Now, while I do understand that is part of my job, I was always shaking my head in disbelief when we were given the list of possible symptoms: mood swings, irritability, lack of interest in schools, underperformance, changes in interests, etc. Well, since I work with teenagers, that list applies to about 90% of them. So, obviously, that list wasn't any help.
A possible symptom of distress, not liking school. I mean, I guess like 80% of the human workforce has psychological distress because they don't like their job. You know, hearing that back, I thought I was making a point against it, but I think I just made a point for it. Now, at the same time, I had a very provocative student who was 2 grades behind and who was just smug as hell. He always spent an unnerving amount of his potential trying to push his teacher's boundaries and see how far he could go. Luckily, I'm not that easy to anger, and always try not to play into the student's hands by doing exactly what they want me to do. So, if I notice that somebody tries to anger me, I give my best to speak even more calmly, etc. When I was grading a test in politics, I noticed that he didn't fill out a question, probably because he was once more oblivious to the answer. Instead, he had used his time during the test to draw a little sketch made of stick figures. One stick figure, labeled as me, had its hand on a lever, up in a risen platform with a gallows. The stick figure with the head in the noose was labeled with his own name. At the feet of the gallows, the rest of the class was protesting with signs saying, "Stop!" or "Don't do it!" I thought about what comment I might write next to it. Then I remembered the training we were given over and over again. Obviously, the student was in distress, so I contacted the school psychologist and mentioned the disquieting sketch on the test. 2 days later, during my lesson, there was a knock on my door. It was the school counselor who came to get the student for a psychological assessment. The sour look he gave me when he came back was marvelous. Suck it, kid. You got something that as an adult could cost you up to $400. Loser. Tackle on your personal struggles and life issues early in life so you can be better as an adult. Car dealer tried to rip me off. Ended up having to pay inflated maintenance bill themselves. This happened about 17 years ago in a major city in the very south of the Netherlands with a Renault dealership. So I had a new job and we needed a second car. We bought a new Twingo, a car that went for about £1,200. Wait, no, euro. Damn it! There were 2 stipulations in the contract when we bought the car. One was that we had to get financing through Renault, and 2 was that 3 years maintenance was included. We financed a minor part for 3 years at 0% interest. Now, after the first year, I took the car for its first service. I had about 12,000 kilometers on the odometer. When I dropped the car off, I was asked if there was anything that needed attention. I think I answered something like, "Do whatever you need to do." Oh, you just know they're going to abuse that approval. In the late afternoon when I picked up the car, 3 rather bulky men were standing behind the service desk. I remember they were really focused on me when I was presented with the bill. The bill was for about €1,000. And for a 1-year-old car with just 12 kilometers, I immediately understood what had happened. They must have figured out that they could inflate the bill with all kinds of nonsense maintenance actions since I gave them carte blanche. And to avoid any troubles, they made sure that I could be intimidated by them being with 3 people. So those without car ownership and maintenance drama problems, I have a car that's 17 years old and over 200,000 Ks on the odometer. My last maintenance bill where I actually had to get repairs and replacements done cost me a maximum $700 on a 15-year-old car. Like, to get this sort of bill on a 1-year-old car, you must have been taking it to a derby. That or you got extremely ripped off, either one. So I just very friendly asked for my car keys.
But you have to pay first.
No, I don't. Please, may I have my car keys? Instead of enlightening them straight away, I kept going like this for a bit longer. When things started to get a bit unfriendly, I reminded the rep that I had bought the car at this dealership, including 3 years of maintenance. All 3 guys turned a few shades lighter, frantically searching for the contract, whispering, moving away to the office out of earshot. It took about 10 minutes before the rep came back out and handed me my keys. I ended up getting its 3rd service just before the 3 years had elapsed, and as soon as I got the title to the car, I traded it in for a different brand. And as you would expect, the bill for the 2nd and 3rd services was less than 300 to 400 euros. Not sure if this is the right Reddit. The compliance part is that they did everything they were supposed to do and way more. And I complied as well by reminding them that they were responsible for all costs. I just love how in the 2nd and 3rd year, where you have driven the car for longer and therefore worn it out for longer,
longer, it suddenly somehow costs less than half price than the first year. You want to be in control? Fine! Years ago, I worked for a public institution where the supervisor was a control... How did I just fail to use words? They were a total control freak. She was hardly able to delegate the most mundane tasks, and even when she did, she would monitor what her number 2 was doing and give him hell if he dared to call a shot himself. Now, in my field, by law, everybody needs to follow 48 hours of mandatory continued training per 3-year span. The state offers a wide selection of different courses you're free to pick from. If you want to get your training from any other agency and/or private company, you need a permission from your supervisor.
Okay, so at this workplace, you basically have like a driver's license, but every few years, instead of just paying to get it renewed, you actually have to get training to get it renewed. I'm assuming I interpreted it right there.
Now, my former supervisor thought that some of these trainings were frivolous, like yoga classes. Wait, what? Oh, meant to prevent burnout.
Dude, that's great. You know how expensive some yoga classes are out there? Like $50 per 2 classes? What the frick is that?
Or first aid classes, which according to her, you should or could do on your own time. So she decided that all training needed to be green-lighted by herself, which was obviously against the law. Most colleagues decided to ignore that order, since it was illegal, and we can't be written up or otherwise disciplined for not following an illegal order. I, on the other hand, thought it would be more fun to comply. So I designed a permission form, where I could copy and paste all information about the online curriculum within seconds, and checked the training offer. I picked quite a number of 2-hour trainings and introduced a form for each one of them. Plus, I sent my form out to all the colleagues, around 175 of them, to make asking for permission easier for them. Quite many picked up on the idea and introduced my form for their trainings as well, so that the control freak supervisor was swamped with hundreds of forms within a single week. We were quite quickly back to being allowed to follow any of the state's trainings freely.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed she didn't follow through with this and end up getting fired. That would have been a lot more satisfying.
Secondhand store won't donate extra clothes because I didn't check a box on a form. Yay, bureaucracy! There's a store in my city where you can bring your unwanted clothes to, and they will sort through them, buy the ones they like off of you, and give the rest of them back. They also have an option to just drop a bag of clothes off, and you can come back and pick up the ones they don't want later, or you can just check the box to have them donate whatever is left. A few years ago, I dropped a bag of clothes off and figured I'd go through what they didn't want, and when I picked up the money just to see if there was anything I might want to keep before it got donated, well, when I picked up the cash and took a quick look through the bag, I told the person behind the counter, thanks so much, I don't actually want any of these, so they can be donated. She told me that she couldn't donate them because I hadn't checked the donate box on the form when I dropped my clothes off. I argued that shouldn't matter since they donate clothes anyway, so what's the difference? She was adamant that she would not take my clothes for donation. We went back and forth on this for a full minute or so with both of us getting more annoyed by the other, eventually I thought, fine, I'll play your little game. I picked up the bag and said, alright, thanks so much, and left the store. 5 seconds later, I walked back in with the exact same bag saying, oh, I have a bag of clothes to sell, and I'd just like to donate whatever you don't buy. She looked at me, peed off, and said, fine, I'll just donate them, but next time, just check the box on the sheet. I walked out of there with my money and otherwise empty-handed.
Okay, hold the phone, my buddy.
Might be a hot take, but I kind of think you were the one who was the problem here. They clearly have you check the box for a reason, because clearly the last thing they want to do is assume that you want to donate the rest of the clothes they don't want. Like, I'd rather they do this than just to assume to donate the rest of them.
Yes, but if you're giving them those clothes to be sold to them, clearly you don't want those clothes anyway.
Sure, that's one factor. Maybe I'd be planning to use the clothes for something else. Either way, to get all hoity-toity at this worker for literally considering that maybe you didn't want these donated because you didn't tick the box. Like, oh, wow, yeah. What a terrible person. Could you imagine this person going up to a cafe?
Excuse me, barista, you made me a caramel latte.
Yeah, because that's what you ordered.
And how dare you?
African exchange student. Here's my all-time favorite malicious compliance story story? So I studied history in Germany, and while there, an African exchange student enrolled as well. He had a very thick accent and had quite a lot of trouble putting his thoughts on paper. So when an assignment was due, he asked the elderly professor if he could write the assignment in English, where he had way more ease expressing himself. Now, the elderly professor didn't want to admit that his English was rather bad. So instead, he referenced the university guidelines that stipulated that, except for language studies, all assignments were to be written in either German or Latin. Little did the professor know that the African exchange student was in fact schooled in a Jesuit monastery. So he did turn in the assignment in perfect Latin. Since the professor had specialized in modern history, he needed help of a Latin professor to grade the assignment. The university guidelines have been amended a year later. Assignments in Latin are only acceptable for those studying Latin anymore, and that elderly professor's ego is still going strong. We only speak to an attorney. Okay then. I was in a very bad car accident in 2021. I ended up with a 5-day hospital stay and had to have months of physical therapy and follow-up care with a number of specialists. Most of the time, getting records, setting appointments, pre-authorization, or anything related to my care was simple and didn't involve much and almost always could be authorized by my name and birth date. I called a provider who had billed my insurance incorrectly, so they wouldn't pay for it and I was getting stuck with the bill. The call went something like this. Company.
Hello, please be advised this call may be recorded for training and quality purposes. How may I help you today?
Hi, I recently got care from X person at X location and there was some incorrect billing, so I am being billed for it and not the insurance company.
Can I please have your name and birth date?
I provided.
I am unable to speak with you about this matter.
What? Why not?
I am only authorized to talk to an attorney about this matter. Is that what I say? Yeah. Cool, that'll get him off my back. All right.
Me, cue malicious compliance. What the okay then. I am representing myself for all legal matters. Now, please discuss this matter with me.
One moment, sir.
I get put on hold for about 3 minutes, and when they come back, we get straight to discussing my issue and get it quickly resolved. I don't think they had run into that before and had to figure out if that loophole counted. It doesn't always should. You have to have an attorney, my butt. Mean waitresses left a neophyte waiter out to dry. Wow, I am learning all these new words today. Neophyte, a person who is new to a subject or activity. Just say new kid. Stop with these fancy words for simple things. I don't know if this qualifies as malicious compliance, but I think it's close. So I live in Sedona, Arizona, but would go down to Phoenix for doctor's appointments and big city stuff. I went to a sushi bar and my waiter was this poor college-age guy, totally in over his head, but trying. He double-checked my order, took forever to get my iced tea, and was running all over the place. A bad service can be aggravating, but he was so panicked I felt sorry for him. I get rattled easily and would be a terrible waitress, so I could sympathize. I could see 2 female waitresses off in the corner, glaring at him and gossiping. After I ate, he kind of disappeared. He may have been fired at this point, I don't really know. I waved at the 2 female waiters. Nothing. After about 10 more minutes, I walked up and asked if I could get my bill. They huffed and made a comment that I wasn't their table, but they would check. I could see more grumbling. So they brought the check out, and it was the wrong one. About 1/3 less than I had ordered. I tried to get their attention again, but they weren't having it. So I went to the register and paid. After I paid, I said I tried to get your attention and let you know you gave me the wrong bill. I think they thought I was going to ask for a refund. I just said thanks. My bill was 1/3 than what it would have been. One of the waitresses looked a little panicky and said we'll do it over. I just said, no thanks, I'm fine. Bye-bye. To be fair, I'm not sure if that's legal because, I mean, even if it's a technicality issue, you still have to kind of pay for what you ordered, you know? I imagine if you go somewhere to get a product, mostly food in this case, and they just hand it to you and kind of forget to expect or ask payment, it's still, you know, your responsibility to pay them. Just because they turned around to continue cleaning the back counter doesn't mean you get to walk away scot-free. Like, you still have an obligation. That said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the laws to that degree, so if anyone's actually aware of this sort of thing, let me know. I'm
I'm curious. Are you free to just walk away if you don't get the correct billing?
$1 lottery ticket? Lottery ticket, please. Stopped at a convenience store to buy a drink. Sign in front of the register said, proceed to self-checkout unless buying lottery tickets or using cash. So, I have cash. Self-checkout is swamped and employees are standing around playing on their phones. So, I got the attention of one of the employees and requested one $1 lottery ticket and, oh yeah, ring up my drink as well. Scowls were across the employee's face. Best part was I went outside, scratched the ticket, and won $5, and we got to meet again as they paid me my hard-earned $5. People were still in line at the self-checkout. You know, this might seem like a win, but this convenience store successfully manipulated and pressured you into spending an extra $1 just to get out a bit earlier. But I guess if you're someone who cares about time equal to money, then, you know, in a way you might have actually saved money. Don't do anything else until this gets done. So, some background. My boss is usually a really cool guy, and I love working at my job, but some days he's just in a mood and decides that one thing is more important than anything else, and it makes me drop everything. And when he's like this, he always ends his tirade with,
"Don't argue with me, just do it."
So I usually work to get it done as fast as possible while also getting my other work done. However, today I actually had some answers he's been waiting for, but he wasn't here this morning. Meetings happen, no big deal. And he sent me an email saying he'd be in this afternoon. No problem, I'll get done what I can. So he walks in and says his hellos and goes to his office to get settled. I always give him like 10 minutes before I hand him all the stuff I need him to deal with, because I hate just throwing it on him when he comes in. So I got all my stuff together to go to talk to him. But he comes back out and slaps a paper on my desk. He's asking why this hasn't been dealt with yet. I explain, as I had before several times, that I can't get this done because it's a government document and they will not let me make changes to our account on his behalf. He says,
I don't need excuses, just get it done today. Don't take calls, don't do anything else, just get this done.
I told him I can call them, but they won't talk to me. He would need to speak with them himself. I also told him the last time I called, I was on hold for over 3 hours because, yay, government. He doesn't care. Don't worry about anything else until this is dealt with. Don't argue with me, just do it. You got it, boss. I've been on hold for about an hour now and have won a few games of solitaire. I think I'll switch to Mahjong, that game in a bit. We can deal with my other stuff tomorrow. Oh, bonus! They have an option to leave a voicemail to get a call back, but last time I did that, they called long after business hours. Plus, I was told to not worry about anything else. Accidental basic training, malicious compliance. My dad was enlisted in the US Army during Vietnam, rather than potentially be drafted. In basic training, trainees were repeatedly told to
do exactly what was told, not what the trainee thought he was supposed to do.
Even to the point of tricks play to make sure he was listening to exact instructions. So there he was on the range for grenade training. Pre-brief tells him as long as he does not let go of the arming spoon, Mr. Grenade is still your friend. Noted. When it comes to practice, the drill instructor tells the group,
pull the pin and throw it high and long down range.
My dad pulls the pin and throws the pin high and long down range. It's so good. He keeps holding the grenade spoon, feeling perfectly safe, as everyone else throws their grenade. He got push-ups. Apparently there is no leeway for malicious compliance in Army basic training. Nah, man, that's... he was merely proving his exact ability to listen to instructions. How dare you punish him? Strict adherence to contract backfires beautifully. Had to share this gem of a story from a few years back when I was contracting with a tech firm. Get your popcorn, because this one's a treat. Enter Mr. Grayson, the firm's new operations head. Now, this guy had a reputation for being a stickler for rules, often to the point of absurdity. Shortly after his arrival, contractors like myself were handed these freshly inked contracts. It was verbose, to say the least, but one clause stood out. All contractors shall adhere strictly to the tasks outlined in their contract. Any deviation will result in immediate termination. This was Mr. Grayson's baby. his attempt to ensure we stayed in our designated lanes. Now, for context, the firm had a history of a collaborative environment. Developers would occasionally assist with design queries, and designers, like me, would sometimes offer input on usability to the developers. But Grayson, oh no, he wanted none of that cross-departmental nonsense. Yeah, because how dare you try to work with the people you work with? Huh? Now, on to the malicious compliance. A big project was on the horizon, and midway, the development team hit a snag. They identified a design flaw, something my team could have fixed in an hour or two. However, helping them wasn't in my contract. So, I sat back, sipped my coffee, and watched the drama unfold. The developers, bound by their contracts, spent days trying to engineer their way around a problem that wasn't theirs to solve. The project timeline got stretched, costs increased, and frustrations bubbled. The climax? A big meeting with higher-ups where Grayson had to explain the delays. When the design flaw was brought up, all eyes turned to me. I simply slid a copy of my contract across the table and highlighted the strict adherence clause. I recall the deafening silence in the room, broken only by Grayson's stammering. In the aftermath, Grayson's strict contract idea was trashed. Collaboration resumed, the project got back on track, and our dear Mr. Grayson, well, he was reassigned to a different department, far away from meddling with contracts. I mean, what a stupid thing to put through in the first place. I sincerely hope this man was like fresh into the company, because there is no way you could have been working in that company, seeing how it all worked, and then thought, hey, what if I put a stick in the middle of my bike wheel? No, that'll make it go faster, won't it?
It was Dr. Seuss week and the teachers wanted to watch Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. Okay, just a small story and nothing too big. But I wanted to share this after watching the Cat in the Hat movie with my husband. I used to work for a Head Start program and it was Dr. Seuss week. Surprisingly, the full day class teachers never seen the movie and wanted to put it on. I told them they shouldn't because there's a lot of adult jokes in it. They told me it was a kid's movie and that I didn't know what I was talking about. I made sure to put on the subtitles so the teachers and parents could read it if they didn't hear it. Let's just say all the parents that took their kids went straight into the director's office. We ended up getting write-ups. I tried to fight for mine, but the director said I could have alerted them on the matter. Fair enough. Thank you for reading this. It is one of my favorite stories to tell. Thank you for schooling them. You'd seen the movie and they're like, no, but it's a kid's movie. That doesn't mean there's not adult jokes. They'll throw those in for the parents who they're forced to watch the kids' movie. Fleet inspections. I used to be the foreman at a food distributor company with a fleet of about 100 units in total. Every quarter there was a document inspection that essentially made sure that all the legal paperwork was together in case DOT ever pulled a unit over. Every technician needed to be clocked on to repair. Sorry, that was just a weird sentence. Every technician needed to be clocked on to a repair order for each job they would work on. This made it easy to track time to measure efficiency, but more importantly, how much time was spent on each unit in a certain time frame. If any unit had high labor times, it would go to considerations to retire it. Makes perfect sense. And for our quarterly inspections, I would make a generic document inspection repair order to knock out all of them in one shot, instead of going back and forth to clock one off and clock into another. Easy, right? The company made a position called Director of Transportation, and the guy they hired had no concept of time management. We butted heads quite a bit because he liked to micromanage things that really didn't matter. I'd give examples, but it would drag this on. Anyway, he was adamant about making a repair order for everything. Even sent an email demanding this is to be done. And after explaining the complexity of his request, he waved me off like I was a peasant. So I made a repair order for one unit, walked to the truck, checked all the paperwork, walked back, noted the work done, and closed it. I did this for every single unit on the yard. He had over 100 repair orders and over 9 hours of labor to do something that usually takes about 2 hours if you do it all at once. I was called into his office the next day. He then wanted to write me up for insubordination. I asked to have a member from HR present. When they showed up, I showed her the email chain of what he wanted. There was nothing he could do. He literally asked me to do it that way. I left the company and the techs followed to work for me at another company. We all made sure to let them know it was because of him. Not a month later, a driver reached out and told me they fired him. I want it done this way! Bro, when people are so stubborn that they're not willing to change their perspective for what might work better, it's such a, oh, it's delicious. sucking the flavor off my fingers with how tasty that is, man. You know what I mean? It's finger licking good when people do that. Who starts the dishwasher, empties it? Okay. Not sure how this will be received, but here goes. I'm a master's student in a well-known university in my country. My job until my thesis is approved is to assist students with their analyses during hands-on laboratory courses and whoever needs assistance in my advisor's crew, whether they are doctorate or masters, do analyses, I hate that word, man. They need for whatever they do. I like what I do, and I'm damn good at it. We had a chain of inconsequential feuds with a fellow master's student, let's call her F, during my first year here after I devastatingly lost a lot of the elderly side of my family back to back. I'm so sorry for your loss, man. I know how it is to work with someone constantly feeling blue, but the way I was treated crossed the line. Constantly being told I was a downer and becoming a thankless errand boy made me hate F. She made her job to make my life hell every chance she had, twisting and turning the unwritten etiquette rules of the laboratory willy-nilly to inconvenience me, especially concerning cleaning the glass equipment, making me take out the trash even though we had janitors, making me wash the dishes by hand and throwing whatever she was using in front of me without saying anything. The straw that broke the camel's back was last New Year's joint gift to our advisor. The gist of it is that it quickly became a screaming match between us. I had to run to the pharmacy to get my dad's heart medicine and couldn't join the crew for getting the present. I had to run to a store and get my own. After that, I was singled out. Because I'm a male and she is female, raising my voice back at her was a cardinal sin. I had to do everything on my own. I made sure everything was going swimmingly and surprisingly made it work, publishing 3 articles in a year, but the bullying continued. The last rule that she added was emptying the dishwasher after starting it. I had nothing to do with the dishwasher at the time, but since I was the odd one out, the blame fell on me. Apparently, she was about to do her analysis for her thesis, and nothing was in place. She was very vocal in our WhatsApp group containing our advisor. I was chewed out by the doctorate students. F it, let's dance. Come spring cleaning in our lab before the laboratory courses started. The dishwasher was loaded with all kinds of glass equipment. One of the doctorate students told F to start the dishwasher. This was 2 weeks ago. I haven't touched anything because I didn't start it, right? This morning I was doing some analyses in the lab and noticed the dishwasher was still full. This is my time to shine. I wrote verbatim, down to every emoji she used, to call her out on the very same thing I was chewed out for. I replied to her older messages about, people are constantly working in the lab, so we should be diligent, and hit her with a, diss you? It was her day off, so now she has to take the bus for 2 hours from her home just to get chewed out by the advisor. I got a nod of approval and an apology from our advisor on behalf of the crew. I'm feeling better about the whole ordeal now. I think the crew should still apologize to you directly, but I'm happy you feel a little vindicated, man. That's some justice for you. Burn my textbook for me? Why are we burning them? Wait, what? Back in the last century, a friend, high school senior at the time, went to Florida. Oh, that makes sense. This is a Florida-related story. For spring break with a group of his friends. During the weeks before break, the group decided they would burn their school-owned physics textbooks on the beach. Kindling, huh? One of my friend's buddies wasn't able to go to Florida, but wanted to participate in the textbook burn. So he asked my friend to take his textbook to Florida and burn it for him. My friend readily agreed. On the evening of the burn, my friend threw his buddy's textbook while his own textbook sat safely in his school locker. No one in Florida realized it wasn't his own book, and at the same time, he complied with his buddy's request. And he didn't have to pay for a lost textbook at the end of the year like his buddies did either. Got to have fun, and it wasn't even something that fell back on you, man. Oh, dude, big brain, 200 IQ. Came out of Florida, too? We don't get a lot of those kinds of wins. Can't get an extension, you say? Okay, then. When I was in university, one class had a weekly assignment which was a 1-page essay which was mandatory to pass, but only worth 1% of the final mark per weekly essay. So they made up 10% of the total mark in a 10-week semester. Each week, I'd put in a lot of effort, and no matter what, would get a 9 of 10, which equates to 0.9% of the 1% mark. This went on for about 6 weeks. I thought it was a little odd that it was always the same mark and was frustrated I didn't get full marks because they were basic questions and I answered perfectly, but that's beside the point of the story. Anyway, my record thus far was perfect. I was a model student, never late, perfect work, etc. Now in week 7, I had a family emergency. I couldn't complete my essay and asked for 1 day's extension. 1 day. Given my record, I didn't envision an issue with this, but surprisingly, my teacher denied my request and told me if I didn't submit it, I'd fail the course. Alrighty then. So I dealt with said emergency. It was late. I opened my Word document, wrote half a sentence, then typed some gibberish that looked like an error code and copied and pasted it down the page. Then I uploaded the essay online. You said I needed to submit my essay? Here it is. What I fully expected to happen was that the teacher would contact me and say that there was an error uploading my document and to please resubmit it. This would have been the next day since it was late at night when I submitted it, so I would have time to do it properly, which is what would have happened had she granted me the extension in the first place. What happened instead was I heard nothing. Then I got my grade, 9 out of 10. What I figured out is my teacher must not have even been reading our essays, and she was probably marking us based on our previous assignment grades and just copying and pasting the grade each week. The worst thing is I couldn't report her because that would have meant confessing to submitting an incomplete essay. Needless to say, for the last 3 weeks I put minimal effort into my essays and lo and behold, continued my streak of 9 out of 10. I definitely think there's some teachers who shouldn't be in the profession because of minimal effort, but that's another level. That's... I guess just take what you can get. If you're gonna get a 9 out of 10 each time and they're not even reading it, use the system to your advantage, you know what I mean? You want a trophy for that? Yes. This happened to one of my cousins. Let's call him Tim for the sake of the story. Can we get a hi Tim in the comments? I bet Tim uses code DAMIEN at EmKayshop.com. Seems like the kind of guy. Which he did to his mom. Tim's mom is a bit of an attention seeker and always wanting to get validation over every single thing she does, and always moaning and complaining that she doesn't get appreciated enough in the house for all the things she does for the family, even though some of the things she does is just basic common sense to do. One day, Tim, after another round of annoying complaints and moans from his mother, sarcastically asked her, "Wow, amazing, you did a great job. You want a trophy for that?" His mom, angered by his sarcasm, blurted out, "Yes, maybe I deserve a trophy for everything I've done in this bloody house." Cue malicious compliance. Tim went to one of those warehouse stores that sells a whole bunch of knickknacks and found a huge box of tiny toy plastic trophies that was sold at a bargain price. He bought the whole box and monitored his mom. It started off with things like when she did the laundry or cooked dinner or cleaned the house. He would give her a trophy and made a huge fanfare about it, with celebratory music in the background and him giving her the cringiest and most exaggerated congrats to her on a job well done. Before we continue, I do think it's fair to want to feel appreciated, but she's taken it to an extreme with with the whole complaining over and over and over again. A lot of the things you're just doing because it's expected. Appreciation's nice, but not for things that are expected of you when you're, a parent in a house, Then it moved on to more things like if she sneezed or coughed or went to the toilet or took a bath, or even when she ate or drank anything. Every single mundane thing she did, he would give her a trophy with all the works. And even got to the point where he would spring into a room to give her a trophy just for waking up in the morning to successfully turn off the alarm. Tim carried on for almost 2 weeks until her dresser was completely filled with his tiny trophies. And his mom's face looked like she was about to explode and rain the fear of God on him seeing those annoying trophies. Luckily for him, Tim's mom was reminded by Tim's dad that she was the one who asked for it. He was there when Tim and his mom had that first argument that started all this, and that he was only doing what she'd asked. She begrudgingly barked at Tim to get rid of all the trophies, though I can't remember what Tim said he did with them. Still, didn't really stop her from being an attention seeker, but she never dared to call Tim on his bluff again. He may be the child, but he just owned the house with that move. Malicious compliance done to me. Oh, that's rare. We don't see many of these stories where thee were the malicious compliance-y. This is the story of malicious compliance done to me back at one of my college jobs. I used to work for a buffet chain restaurant as a cook. The owner/manager was a decent enough human, except that he trusted some truly awful assistant managers to run the restaurant. The owner was thrilled that I would commit to working the same 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I was, in turn, equally thrilled that I could find a schedule that was going to work around my classes that would pay me enough that I could afford all my bills. For about 2 months, I worked the same shift 5 days every week, and then all of a sudden, one day, I was down to only 2 days, 8 hours each day. I go to talk to the assistant manager in charge of scheduling about this and explained I need more days, or I wouldn't be able to afford to live. They apologized and said not to worry, and they'll happily give me more days on the next schedule. Next schedule comes out, and I'm on schedule for 4 days, 2 hours each day. When I confronted the assistant manager about it, he reminded me that I'd asked for more days and he'd given me exactly what I wanted. He wasn't wrong. Okay, well now ask for more hours. It's simple, just change the request. You want me to leave you alone? Okay, enjoy handling the bus by yourself. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and other fellow readers. I've listened to other MC stories, but never thought I'd ever have one to tell until today. I work at Wendy's. Normally in back drive-thru, we had a bus come through, and if you've ever worked fast food, you know bus equals all hands on deck. I walked up to my manager, who tends to be a bitch, and asked what she wanted me to do. She told me, OP, just leave her alone. So I did. I walked back to my corner and watched as the chaos ensued. Every now and then I'd hear her ask for things to be dropped, but I didn't move from my corner because I was told to leave her alone. If I had been asked, I would have done things for her, but she never asked, and I was told to leave her alone, so I just stayed put and watched her struggle. That's a solid story, actually. Manager wants to be left alone? Yeah, no, I can do that. Absolutely. Do your thing. See you handle it. See if that extra 50 cents an hour makes a difference in your work ethic. Let's go. Dart house rules gone bad. Uh-oh. Darts and gone bad is never a combination you want to see. We used to play darts every Friday at work, just as a fun thing to do before the weekend. We had our own simplified house rules and tried to keep it fun and casual. 3 darts, 5 rounds, highest score wins. Most of the time, people picked up their own darts after throwing, but sometimes they'd forget. I suggest having a small penalty for doing so to encourage speedy play. Throw 3 darts, pick them up, next player. Mary insisted that it would be much better if the next person picked up the darts since they were going to use them next. Me and Tom disagreed, but she wouldn't budge. It was Tom's turn, and after Tom, it would be Mary's turn. Tom threw his darts as high up on the wall as he could, putting them just under the ceiling. Mary had to get a chair to climb up and pull the darts out. Now the rule is you pick up your own darts after throwing. Presence in German class is mandatory? I'm from Luxembourg, a tiny country between Germany, France, and Belgium. Sure, we could show it on the map somewhere, just like highlight it. Thank you. Shout out my Luxembourgers. In order to get to the point of the story, I need to lay some groundwork. Our educational system is a bit unique, since a strong emphasis is put on learning foreign languages, probably because you're bordered by 3 countries. Thus, kids are alphabetized in German at the age of 6, even though for natives, the mother tongue is Luxembourgish. At age 7, French is added, and English at the age of 13, except if they opt in for Latin, then they start English courses a year later. Most people are taught all 3 languages until they graduate from high school. Another special thing about Luxembourg is that it only has one single university, and only for a couple of decades now. Thus, there is a certain tradition of Luxembourgian youth studying abroad. A couple of friends of mine enrolled in Strasbourg University, one studying biology, the other law. The university has a policy that during the first year, you have to pick at least one course that is not your main subject. And most students from Luxembourg pick German. Having had 13 years of classes in German, most are about as fluent as a native speaker, so it makes for an easy pass. For years, they were allowed to enroll and only show up for the exam, which they always aced, so they complied with the policy, but didn't lose any time, but could use it to get used to their new hometown and concentrate on their main subjects. But not my friends. The new professor for German class announced that whomever was absent more than twice during a semester would fail. The friends were quite annoyed, but did comply. But as it turned out, the professor wasn't very fit in German, so she made frequent mistakes, especially concerning the right choice of prepositions and before all grammatical cases, which are quite tricky in German for non-native speakers, and some native speakers too. So the 2 friends had fun raising their hand whenever they noticed a mistake and corrected the professor, who after a couple of sessions grew very disgruntled. After a month of being corrected over and over again by 2 of her students, the mandatory presence was dropped again for students from Luxembourg. That's a classic Luxembourg W. We got another dishwashing malicious compliance. This is my first malicious compliance, so bear with me as I'm typing on mobile. I'll try to make it short and sweet. This all started in the spring of 2022. I was a dishwasher, now a prep cook, and I was covering a prep cook's position in the AM and washing dishes in the PM, and doing all my necessary duties for the day, such as taking out the trash, getting the mail, etc. I'd leave by 4 p.m., but I noticed very quickly that after I did my duties and hit the dishes, I'd be leaving by 4:30 p.m. I gently complained that the workload was causing me to leave later than my desired clock out time to my manager. I was polite in her to offer to my boss the idea of one of the cooks or somebody to go into the dish area for a few minutes to run some dishes through, but the boss declined the idea, saying, "We don't have enough staff to do that. Just get the dishes done." Cue malicious compliance time. I did just as I was asked, and only what was asked. I rarely did my other duties and focused mainly on dishes. Need me to go to the mailroom? Sorry, I'm doing dishes. Need me to collect trays? Sorry, the dish area called and it needs me back. My Friday deep clean list was neglected too. I'd get a few things done here and there when I had the time, but mostly stuck to the dishes. This went on for 2 months, and at the 1 month mark, my boss called me into my office to ask what was happening and why I was getting out later than normal. I explained my situation. I forgot what I actually said. And about a week later, I got told coworkers will help me out with dishes as well as my daily duties. The amount of overtime, and not to mention a mild case of burnout, was crazy. I got promoted over the summer and now work as a prep cook only. We have a new dish person, and if they're struggling, I don't hesitate to help them when I deem it appropriate. You changed the culture there, man. You did it. Good job. That's what we love to see.
Men's hats. Well, see, this just goes back to the thing I said about there being really no good hats for men aside from ball caps. Can't really wear fedoras anymore. That comes with its own connotations. And this shirt hat thing, I don't know if that fad's ever gonna catch on. Food isn't allowed in the living room. His tablet isn't allowed in the kitchen. He beat the system. I quit. And yeah, as you probably should at this point, I will say, you should probably quit. He's just too smart for you. I'm sorry. You lose. Push here. Okay. Why is it not working? Yeah, that sticker seems really dumb. Why couldn't you have gotten one that goes on the button itself that says push here? Or just, to hell, even just push, man. What the hell is going on? Come on. So there's a rule against pumpkins in my dorm, but it doesn't say anything about pineapples. Okay, cute. You could have used a big ass turnip though. You know, the original jack-o'-lanterns. Also, why is there a rule against pumpkins? I don't understand. What's wrong with pumpkin? Boss insisted I work in the office today. My boss and I had a disagreement about working from home this week. The office is in San Francisco. I live in the East Bay and need to cross the Bay Bridge to get to work. We had an important presentation scheduled today. I wanted to do it virtual because of the APEC meeting is in... Sorry, there's no oven there. I just can't read today. Because the APEC meeting is in San Francisco this week, and everything else seems disrupted. President Biden and Chinese President Xi are here. It's a 2-hour commute on a typical day, and I told my boss it might not be feasible to come in this week. He insisted that I come in, so I said, okay, but don't blame me if I get stuck in traffic. We had a pretty heated discussion about it. So today, there's a huge backup on every freeway toward the Bay Bridge because protesters have chained themselves across all 5 lanes. Okay? I didn't hear anything about that happening. What the hell? The bridge is completely closed. Now, the boss wants me to do the presentation virtual, but I told him I can't. I'm stuck in traffic. I can't operate my vehicle and do the presentation. You'll have to do it without me. But he isn't really qualified. What a dumbass. Your boss is kind of stupid, I gotta admit. Also, I have been stuck on the Bay Bridge before, one time, and oh my god, I have never seen a traffic jam last that long. Ever. Anywhere I've ever been. I would take LA every day in its worst fashion over that one goddamn bridge in that area. Calling me on the day off, cha-ching! This happened well over a year ago, but as a unionized employee, I get every 3rd Friday off. On my day off, I'm playing some video games and get a text from the boss. I know it's your day off, but whatever, that's easy to ignore. But then I get a second text, and after I ignore that, I get a call. Boss, I know it's your day off, but our phones are down. No worries, I'll handle it. We hang up and I call our phone provider. I'm the IT and the contact there, and this isn't my first call ever to them, so I literally have their service department saved in my phone. I call, I register the problem, they say they'll look into it. I provide them my boss's name and extension, and to call him when it's fixed. I then call my boss back and let him know that they'll call him ASAP. But now for the malicious compliance bit. Our contract stipulates a minimum call-in of 4 hours, meaning that you cannot pay me less than 4 hours for a day unless it's by my own choosing. If you call me in for an hour and send me home, I get 4 hours of pay. But wait, there's more. We also have an overtime clause that pays overtime at 150%. And lastly, we have a clause that says all overtime must be approved by the boss, or else it is 1-to-1 time off in lieu, which you can take at 1-to-1 ration, i.e., if I decide that the weekend is a good time for server updates, I don't need to ask for approval. But my 2 hours of work only translates to 2 hours of paid time off elsewhere. Yeah, you lost me with that one. But anyway, combine all this in one delightful batch, and you get a 10-minute call that results in 6 hours of banked time off. I went right back to my video games, filled out my timesheet the week after, and said, I know it's your day off, but is implied consent for overtime. Minimum call out of 4 hours is 150%, is 6 hours. Sorry, I'm having trouble today. Almost an entire day off with pay in exchange for a 10-minute call? Thank you very much. Bonus. Guess who has 2 thumbs and has since then never been called on his day off? This unionized guy. Hint, get unionized, fight back. Yeah, unions are pretty sick, bro. Oh, man. Manager told me to call the person of the computer I was working on, so I did. I was sitting in my office one slow day and the CEO walked in. Always a pucker moment, even though I'm on very good terms with him, and he handed me an obviously non-business laptop and asked if I could get it it back up and running, as it had very important thing on it that was needed shortly, and I wasn't doing anything, and he still signed my paycheck. I said, well, you got it, sir. Later, a middle mangler comes in and asks me to do something, and I say, you're number 2 in line, and pointed to the obviously not corporate laptop I was fixing. Mangler didn't like that much and demanded I call whoever and tell them that it wasn't acceptable for me to be working on personal equipment. Oh boy, I see where this one's going. So I pulled out my cell phone and called. Mangler could only hear half of my convo, but what he heard was something like, hey Tom, I got Bob here telling me it's not acceptable for me to be working on your personal stuff, and he wanted me to call and tell you. Oh sure, he's right here, hang on. And I handed the phone to the Mangler. Mangler started off saying, it's not acceptable, and then his eyes got real big, and the rest of the conversation was yes sir and no sir. He hung up and thundered, why didn't you tell me it was the CEO's laptop? And I said, you didn't give me a chance, and demanded I call them right now. Oh, yeah, trying to blame it on you. Why did you do that to me? I didn't do it to you, dumb. I need a doctor's note to work from home for more than 2 days while I have an unidentified, presumably contagious illness, if you insist. It's a tale as old as capitalism. My job, which to be fair, I freaking adore working at and am so grateful for and happy with, requires a doctor's note because I've been sick and working from home for 2 days. Now, I haven't had just a minor cold or flu. Several days ago, I came down with the worst cold or flu symptoms you can imagine. And then things started going downhill from there. It got to the point where I have now been at the ER 2 days in a row because of tonsillitis and excruciating pain brought on by swallowing tiny sips of water. Oh man, I deal with that a lot. It's not great, and despite a whole battery of swabs and tests, the doctors don't really know what the underlying bacteria or virus causing these symptoms is. Obviously, there's no way in hell I want to infect my coworkers with this plague, so I told HR that I would be working from home until I'm feeling better, since my job can be done 100% remotely. They hit me back with the ever-famous, if you need to work from home for more than 2 days in a week, you'll need a doctor's note since it's against policy. My first instinct was to go into work looking, sounding, and feeling like death warmed up, but I don't want to infect my colleagues. I legitimately believe that I would pass out on my walk to work and would have been taken to the hospital yet again. Instead, I spoke to the ER doctor from earlier this evening, my second visit in as many days. I asked him how long he thought I should stay away from work or work from home, and then told him I needed a note so I could stay home. He had a brief flash of vaguely furious what the f*** across his face at the idea that my job would force someone as sick as I am to come in and risk health of those around me. Then assured me he would write the note. I was thinking it would just be a basic, whatever, should continue to work from home until the end of the week. Nah, bro came through for me. He wrote a note saying that I should be off work for a minimum, at least another week, and then added the pièce de résistance as his last line. Infectious diseases require more than 2 days to improve. Old boss told me to contact his lawyers, so I did. Just a quick disclaimer, this is a burner account because my real one gives away where I'm from and who I am, and if anybody I know sees this post, I'll be recognizable. So, this started some time back. I got fired from my job due to an injury and had to be hospitalized for a significant time. In my contract, it stated that if I had more than XXX amount of sick days in a 12-month period, I could get my contract terminated within 1 month notice. So that happened, and of course I contacted my union. They told me it was a legal termination, but they asked about a specific part of my contract, which was about my commission. Turns out, I've missed out on some special commission during my employment, and totally missed it when I read my contract when I was employed. Can't really get closer to which kind of commission due to my anonymity. My union advised me to contact the boss, show him that part of my contract, and profit off the missing commission? Anyway, and try to get a settlement. I was looking for what is the equivalent to around 3,000 euro. I went to see my boss and started with a nice chat. After about 10 minutes, I brought up the issue and showed him my contract and showed him that I've never gotten the commission stated in the contract. My boss told me straight up to contact his lawyers and that we were done talking and told me to leave. Cue malicious compliance. I went home, looked every paycheck through, and set up a meeting with a lawyer. We found a lot of small mistakes in the paychecks and summed it all up. We sent an official letter to his lawyers and got an answer a few days later. Now he was willing to settle for the first amount, equivalent to 3,000. I smiled and laughed. No can do, Mr. Boss Man. Not anymore. Now I want the full amount, which is equivalent to 10,000 euro plus pension, plus 15% in damages, plus all legal fees, and I have proof of everything to back up my claim. Due date of the court. And guess what? He lost big time. I've now planned a nice vacation and still have more money than I asked for in the first place. I love stories like that. I love stories like that, man. People don't understand why you're leaving early. I was working for a smallish company, about 60 employees across several locations. IT support for both hardware, laptops, phones, and software. When I was hired, just under 9 years ago, it was verbally agreed that instead of clocking any callouts as overtime, I would just take the time in lieu. Callouts were always always minimal, and there were never any issues with me taking the time here and there to make up for it. Any calls in the middle of the night were quickly resolved, and I've had no problem getting back to sleep. Appointments in the middle of the day were fine because of the additional hours from whenever. This worked well for almost my entire time there. I also always started early, just depending on when I left the house. Got into the office, got my coffee, could have been anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes because I would leave the house earlier so as not to wake the family if school was off that day. I didn't care at that point, never bothered me. They got free time from me, but again, I did not care because honestly, what else did I have to do? It was a great job until it wasn't. One weekend I was working on some hardware maintenance, cleaning up wiring, Ethernet plugs, installing a new UPS that took me the better part of Sunday to complete, 6 to 8 hours. This was understood, approved in advance, and appreciated. The following week, I decided to start burning those extra hours up. I still came in early as I had done for years, but started leaving an hour early from my regular end time every day if nothing was going on. This is important. If something needed done, I got it done. Oh man, they expected so much from you. I was reachable via email until early evening and phone pretty much 24/7. This particular week was slow, so I had nothing going on. I left an hour early for the first 4 days. On Friday, my boss came to me and said, people noticed that you've been leaving early this week. I'd like you to make sure you stay in your office until the scheduled end of day. Oh yeah, they don't mind it when you show up and work for free early, but if you leave an hour early because nothing's going on, they get pissy, right? I explained to him that I was burning up loo days, and he just reiterated that it looks bad to others. Seriously? You can't tell the others that I work my 40 hours a week, just not at the same time as them? Fine, cue the MC. I immediately submitted 4 hours of overtime for the hours that I didn't take in lieu. I still showed up at the office at whatever time I got there, but didn't not start any work until 8 a.m. If asked, I would say, sure, 8 a.m. start time. If I got called outside of office hours, depending on how long I spent on the issue, I logged it as overtime. User calls me at 7 p.m. to ask a question, I answer him in 30 seconds. 1 hour of OT, baby. When my boss started to ask, how come you're submitting all this overtime? I responded with a simple, some people don't understand or like me taking lieu time, so I need to claim it as overtime since I'm at my desk from 8 to 4. Because I wasn't available at his beck and call, it ended up costing them more money. 95% of my job could be done from home because of full remote access, but that stupid old school mentality means that people in the office need to see you at your desk all day long. I left the company very shortly after that for a much better paying job with full work from home. Know your worth. I used my meal plan to feed over 120 less fortunate people. Good lord. All right. This happened my freshman year of college about 20 years ago. My university had just invested in a big new dining hall, and to help pay for their investment required all new students to buy a 150 meal plan both semesters. This was a big financial burden, being from a lower middle class family, but my parents pooled funds to help me out and make it happen. Shortly into my first semester, I found out from friends that the meals you didn't use didn't roll over. Since I lived off campus, I knew I wouldn't be able to use them all. Heading into November, I realized I would end up with 60 to 75 meals left over, and I complained about this a lot to family and friends because it seemed like such a waste. Oh, they love it when that happens, though. In comes the plan. My freshman year of college was also my cousin's senior year, and we hung out pretty often. He was the biggest trickster slash prankster type you ever met. One night, while we were drinking, he says, what if you brought a bunch of homeless people in to use your meals? How much would that piss off the self-righteous bastards? We laughed all night, but the more I thought about the idea, the more I really started to like it. We talked all weekend and hatched a plan. On Monday morning, we went down to the local Salvation Army around the corner. I've grown to really despise the organization, but in the early 2000s in a small town in USA, it's what we had. We told the lady at the desk, I'd like to feed people in need with my meal plan. She was hesitant at first, but said she was working with people this would be a huge blessing to, especially during the holiday season. She helped me organize 2 days the following week where around 30 people would meet me at the dining hall and we'd eat. I would wear a certain hat so they could find me, and then we would go and eat. The day finally arrived and all kinds of people were there. There were homeless people in tattered clothes, there were families with kids that seemed excited to eat out, there was even one family I will always remember that seemed embarrassed to take a handout, but I made an effort to talk to everybody to help make them feel welcomed. At noon, we headed into the dining hall. I walked up to the lady at the entrance and said, these people are with me, they're my friends, I would like to swipe them in. She looked confused, but reluctantly said okay. To say we got every reaction humanly possible would be an understatement. There were staff that were obviously annoyed with the influx of diners, there were students that were laughing, there were students that were giving me the silent clap, there were snobbish faculty members that seemed to be disgusted at the type of people coming into the dining hall. I didn't care. Eventually, a head staff member came up and said that they knew what I was doing and they didn't like it. I said, these are my friends eating with me. I paid for these meals. Am I doing anything wrong? She was stumped. I love that. I know what you're doing. I don't like it. I really don't give a flying fuck. Maybe you should go away and mind your own business. The next day, the same situation happened with the same reactions. It seemed that I had caused quite a stir on campus, and it just so happened that the university present? Oh, I don't know what a university present is, but the university resident was eating there that day. She came up to me and said, even though she would ask that I not tell me friends to do the same thing with their meals oh, I see. She was proud that her students had the heart to do something for others like that. The following semester, I did the exact same thing. I even used my meals sparingly so I could bring in more people. The one memory will always stick out in my head is the family with the little kids so excited to go to the pizza bar and soft serve ice cream machine, giggling the whole time. To this day, it's still one of the proudest moments of my life. Me and my friends and family still have a drink and chuckle over the story and the snooty, angry reactions that I got. I like you. I like you a lot. You're a cool person. I appreciate you. Screw universities, man. You want proof that my fiance is sick? You got it. I, 25, am engaged to my fiance Joey, who's 26. He recently had surgery on his leg and hip, but there were complications, and he has been sick and weak since. We try not to ask for help, but this has put a big financial strain on us, to the point where we spent our wedding savings on his recovery. We're fine with this, because if we need to have a courthouse wedding, we're cool with him. We just wanted him to be healthy. But we did set up a temporary donation page to help with some of the expenses. A friend of mine, Carla, 25, donated about $10 a month ago, and I reached out to her to thank her. Last week, we posted an update not asking for more money, but just to let people know that Joey has had another setback and the doctors are creating an all-new treatment plan for him. Carla commented on the publicly? Carla commented publicly and said the following: I'm beginning to question if he has actually been sick this long, or if y'all are trying to get more money for your wedding. Who takes this long to recover from surgery, especially when you're an athlete? Yeah, I wouldn't talk to that person for a while. That's a pretty nasty thing to say. Well, you know what? You're not recovering in the time frame that I think you should be recovering in. Therefore, you're lying. Okay, sweetheart, chill out. I said, I'm very offended and appalled that you would accuse us of faking anything. Maybe you're just having a bad day or a moment of bad judgment, but how shamefully low of you. She replied, I want my donation back unless you can show proof that he's sick, in a hospital bed or sitting in a doctor's office. Anything? I don't know. Sorry, you already donated the money. You're not getting it back, hun. $10? Nah, if you're gonna be petty about it, I'm gonna be petty about it. You have no right for it back. I sent her $10 to get her off our backs, but I also sent her a video with Joey's approval. The proof she asked for. One of the concerns Joey had is that he will get severely nauseous if he eats protein, which is what he's supposed to be doing, and when he overexerts himself, which he does sometimes. I sent her a video of him dry heaving into an emesis bag in the middle of PT. Now, one of his doctors asked us to record his PT so they can see the progression of him not feeling well to hopefully make some adjustments. So, I didn't take this video just to send to Carla, but to me it seemed like solid proof. She said, what the hell? I have emetophobia? I didn't know this, and you just triggered me so bad. I hope you're happy with yourself. I feel like I've been traumatized. I said, so now you have $10 more to go process this trauma in therapy. Boss introduces new time tracking tool to avoid time manipulation. Backfires on him. Doesn't it always, though? Doesn't it always backfire on them? Man, I work at a small startup company of around 12 people. It's a very good atmosphere in the office, and everyone pulls their weight and is super motivated. However, our boss likes to micromanage us, even though he has no expertise in any of our fields, marketing, design, accounting, whatever. Especially us in marketing and design suffer a lot from that, since he'll make changes to our strategies, posts, website, whatever, sometimes without telling us, and then gets upset at us when the customer feedback is bad and we aren't reaching our goals. So recently he told us that the reason he thinks we aren't seeing enough results is because we're manipulating our hours and not actually putting in the work we should. Until then, we each wrote down our hours manually in an Excel sheet. But with the new time tracking tool, he would see how long we were working down to the minute. We also could only log in on our desk PCs and previously approved home office devices, but not mobile, because if you're not at your desk, it's not work. After our initial shock passed and our boss left for the day, our manager called for a meeting and we came up with a plan. We would do as he says, in the most just follow the rules way possible. We would not engage in work-related conversations with him unless we were sitting at our desks and are clocked in. Any questions by him are asked, we are clocked out, will only be answered once we clock in again the following day. Every phone call, text message, or otherwise work-related things outside of the office would only be answered once there was an option for us to clock in, either the next day in office or, for some of us, on our home office device. Since we no longer have the option to shift time manually, all work minutes and hours would be clocked exactly when they took place. Side note, in my country, weekends pay better, Sundays have to be paid double, and working after 8 p.m. warrants additional financial benefits by law. Previously, if we needed to post something real quick or had a question, we would just add the weekend hours or late time to the upcoming Monday. Basically out of goodwill, but no more than that. We would stop independent activity, like posting on social media or writing an email, and would send him everything to approve before following through. Oh boy. After about a week, our boss was so fed up with this, he gave us the option to clock in from our mobile devices so we could get a more immediate response, or so he could get a more immediate response to his questions. However, this of course led us to clocking in way more frequently since, as I said, he likes to micromanage and is therefore asking a lot of questions. I'm happy to report that as of 2024, we've abolished the system again and regained most of our independence, and even though our boss is still pissed about how we exploited the system, it brought the team closer together and hopefully taught him a lesson. I really hope that it did. Cop keeps interrogating me on where I'm coming from? My pleasure. Disclaimer, I'm a woman and was polite otherwise. When I was younger, I would visit natural parks. One time, I was driving home and a police officer pulled me over for alcohol testing. I politely complied, yet the officer must have thought I was peddling something because he asked for a further test and started interrogating me. I told him that I came from the natural park, yet he was asking me the same question on repeat. Finally, I kept a cordial demeanor, imagining myself as if I were talking to a coworker with the appropriate delivery. I went on a long monologue of how I enjoyed visiting natural parks, which road I had took there, where I stopped for petrol, and how much I paid for it, where I parked, which track I walked on, when did I decide to turn back on the track, which birds I saw, the weather at the park, and so on. Finally, after a minute, he told me to shush and then let me go after the drive became clear. I think some cops would have gotten more angry by this behavior, but what worked for me was my genuine delivery. I feel like the problem here is dude being an asshole for no reason to somebody who, did he really have any reason to be testing you? The f is that about, dude?